Yeah, we'll start working as well. Yep. And that's how easy it is to podcast nowadays. But I think YouTube doesn't recognize us. Oh no, here it is.
Do I have time to do you have the link for this?
Now it should be somewhere. It definitely should be somewhere. Because this is the server. Oh, here's it. Yeah.
Can you send
Oh,
it to
just
me?
live. Look at that. Just live.
Can you send it to me?
On Airbnb?
Yeah, that's the only. So I can share it. Oh, we have how much?
We're already on, but go ahead.
No, I just wanted to go take my phone so I can share it somewhere.
Go ahead. While he goes and picks up his phone, I'll share the link with another potential guest. All right. Ba-bam. And here you can see how you came in.
Hey. Look. So you sent it to me?
Oh,
The
right.
link?
I sent it to another one.
Seriously?
Yeah, because I told her. I told her that I
Oh,
was.
I thought from random.
So where are you? Where's Marco? You had a smaller beard,
Did I?
didn't you?
No.
It looks like in the picture. Here.
I don't know. Maybe.
So, all right. Now I send it to you.
Let's see.
Actually, I suppose I had to test it, whether or not it's working actually, but whatever. All right. So the audio is still working. Yeah. If you want, you can use the computer as well.
No, it's just that I gotta send this one, but I don't have Facebook on WhatsApp. I only use Facebook for some people. Sorry, on the phone I only use it. Yeah, it doesn't work obviously.
Yep.
There.
Let's just check how we're doing. Look at that. One person is watching us.
Hey.
How you doing?
Can you actually see who the person is?
I think no.
Wow.
No.
That would be fun though.
Probably.
Who's watching? Probably it's your friends.
I hope so.
Hello, friend. Ah.
If
Wow.
if it's a friend of mine, then I probably know who it is. And the funny thing is, he looks a bit like you.
Oh, cool.
For real. Even with the glasses and stuff. Hi, Dorms.
Hi, Dorms. What is it?
Dorms.
Dorms. Yeah, it's not working.
What is not working?
It's the connection. It's not really working. I'm
Which
trying.
one? FCK?
No, I guess I have ZELUS.
Take FCK. This one is nearer from here.
All right. I'll just have to. I'm new to this. I never had any Apple device.
Why did you choose an Apple device then?
Why did I do that?
You're a little hipster.
No, really. I don't like Apple devices. It's a long story behind it.
we have a lot of time.
No, it's just that I had this coupon that I could spend, and it was for Apple devices.
So you got it on the cheap?
Yeah.
You got it on the cheap? Oh, well then.
I mean, it's I paid it like 100 something. And for being new, I think it's quite alright.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it working flawlessly, as they always claim?
It does, but I'm pretty sure it's because it's new.
Might
I mean, if it weren't working flawlessly, I'd be quite disappointed. Whatever the brand.
Well, anyway, at least now, no claims against Apple, right?
No, not now. I mean, there you go. Done. That's it. I'm 100% yours.
So did you share the link?
I did, but the person I shared it with is actually doing jogging right now. So
whatever. It might be the case that she?
It's a she.
Yeah, she will end the jogging and we'll still be talking.
It would be fun. I mean, if we had started this before, she could have been listening to the podcast while she was jogging, but yeah, too late.
You mean streaming? Really?
Yeah. I guess.
I mean, not YouTube.
Can't you do it?
Would you be able to do? It would be fun. I bet it could be done on Facebook. But can you... Well, do you mean that if she would put her phone...
Yeah, some device.
Man, that would be a drag on her 4G, wouldn't it?
I don't know. As I told you, I'm not the most technologically advanced person.
If I would have to guess, I would say you are. Because you look like sort of either IT or marketing
it's
dude.
The glasses. It's
yeah, that make the marketing
glasses.
part. That's for sure.
But it's. I'll just take them off so you stop assuming fake.
Well, no,
things.
I mean, it's not. Are they real glasses or just for
No, they're actual glasses.
That's the marketing part. Just to look the part.
No, that's actual glasses. So I'll have to put them back on soon. No worries. So
first things first.
Yeah.
What are your impressions of Latvia so far?
I was of Latvia. I know nothing. I can only tell you about Riga.
That's the best answer. That's the best answer right there.
Yeah, I was only in Riga. I didn't go. I flew straight from Geneva to Riga, and I actually came here for a job reason, but it's only gonna be starting from Monday, and I thought I might come a little bit earlier to do some tourism.
Job reason you might need to actually live here, or just
No. It's just I have to attend a conference.
Oh.
That's gonna be here and at the university.
Wait a second, your job is to attend conferences?
That's my job.
Come on, son.
No, I work in research. I do a PhD, so I'm attending a conference here, which is not an actual conference. It's more of a annual meeting that we have, because the project that I work on as a research assistant involves kind of several universities, and we meet once a year in some different places and kind of try to make it also enjoyable from
So what's the research field?
I have a background in economics.
All right.
And right now I'm working on language policies.
Explain that more.
Yeah. It's something that I didn't really know about before I started this, but it's a topic in Switzerland, which is the country I live in, because Switzerland is a multilingual country.
Yep.
And basically what we do in our part of the job is kind of develop a framework to decide on how to manage language use within a country based on official languages, language use and language services.
All right.
And their economic and social impact. But it's a very big project, actually. We have several universities, and each university is actually dealing with a part of it. We have legal scholars, we have actual linguists, we have philosophers, and each one is taking care of a part of it. So just to give you an example, you might come up with a certain solution from an economic perspective and say, okay, with this solution, you're going to maximize, optimize results in this and this terms.
Okay.
But then it might be legally impossible to do that, because it might be against the rules of the European Union, because it's a EU funded project. So we're working on the case of the European Union.
Okay.
Or there again, the philosophers might step in and say, actually, this is against ethical rules, or
the fact that you have even philosophers in that project seems really interesting.
It is very big. And obviously we have linguists and people.
So what's the language part regarding let's say somebody has an economic idea which could be very beneficial to Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
What is the language then
Okay.
in that context?
Okay, let me make an example. Okay, so first of all, Switzerland is really not part of the project because it is part of the project because it's providing actually the coordination of the project and obviously also doing research. But the case study is the European Union.
Oh, so it's meant for European Union
Yeah,
uses.
yeah. But also,
Alright,
we're trying to kind of go like a step further and try to develop frameworks to generate policies that are reapplicable to different cases.
All right.
But a starting point is the EU because it's as I told you, it's funded by the Commission, the European Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, they do like research, but they want results. Like say, okay, we have this.
Dude, I used to work as a financial auditor for a European funded project.
Yeah. So
I'm not on necessarily on that with you 100% when it comes to the results part.
Okay, let's say that
'Cause I
supposedly should be like that.
Because I had a lot of projects that were funded especially for research. You had many different universities from different countries coming together, doing some stuff. Biggest expenses were always traveling and salary.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
But that's what it is.
Well,
And,
yeah.
I mean, expenses wise, it's definitely
And afterwards, you got a report about this thick,
yeah.
right? And I don't know how far anything of that.
I bet nobody reads it. Yeah,
Sort
but
of
that's
the
it.
executive summary, perhaps. That's it.
You have to fund research anyway, because
That's for sure. That's something that actually establishes some well, maybe not practical, but at least academic sort of groundwork. That's for sure.
and also of course we organize doctoral schools. We kind of train people as well.
Yep.
We organize meetings, so it kind of has a lot of positive feedback. So
this one is actually a hybrid for you then, because it's a long-term project and it actually aids you when it comes to your academic career, right?
Yeah, because I'm also doing on the side. I mean, I work as a research assistant, but on the side, I was asked if I wanted to also do a thesis.
Sounds good.
And so I'm also doing it.
Sounds good. Because then you are just the main guy. When it comes
no.
to
There are a
your
lot
thesis. No. When it comes to your thesis, you're just the main guy.
Supposedly, yes. That what it should be.
You're pretty privileged.
But the academic career was already a kind of a turn for me because before I started this, I worked as a consultant in a consulting company.
Explain, please, to me, what are consulting companies really doing in a sense? Because I used to write invoices for consulting services, right?
Yeah.
But that might be whatever. It's just to get paid for whatever it might be. Just consulting was easier to write than to specify all the time.
Yeah,
but what is the international real
added value of a consulting company?
Yeah, what is your client base? What is your main client?
I'm not really sure you want to get me started on this, but there is a reason why I quit.
Yes, I do.
That's a reason. There's a reason why I quit. I mean, it was a job that I don't want to say I didn't like, but it was not the job for me. I mean, most of the time, what you do is kind of repetitive chores, like input data and stuff. And to be fair, to be honest, most of the time is kind of sell words to your clients, like telling them what they want to hear, like you're doing fine, or you should do this and you're gonna be a little better. But actually most of the time you're kind of reworking past presentations and PowerPoints that you sold to someone else. And
what is the need you are fulfilling? Let's say I would imagine,
not me, because I'm no longer in the field.
Yeah, but what I would imagine, let's say a big company wants to go into a new market, then they would probably need some consulting services,
so
right?
in that case, what they would do would be something like, okay, we have previous experience in this country. For example, we had other clients from this country, or we have local consultants from that country.
Yeah.
And then they might give you, in that case, it would be actually useful because they might come in and say, okay, I'm going to help you through the process of getting acquainted with the local culture, and the local context, I don't know, financially, legally. So in that case, it would be actually useful. But there again, I think there's a lot of hype about it, but it's not really justified, because I think a lot of the work is actually idle time. You're just
But why are the clients interested in getting the service then? They seem to have perceived some benefit then.
I mean, you kind of in life, even individuals, they kind of need to have someone tell them you're doing right, or to tell them you should do like that or like this. I guess that's kind of just the same needs, but on a corporate level.
Because I would imagine consulting in the 21st century means that someone needs to Google a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've met very good consultants, people who were very prepared, but also a lot of people who didn't really know what they were doing and kind of pretended they were the expert of that very thing, but they were actually not, and they had been kind of doing research the day before. So
how do you prepare for being a consultant? Do you get a specific education for being a consultant?
No, you find people with any kind of background. I guess most people will have a background in economic-based subjects,
right.
But I've met people who've done any sort of things, starting from international relationships or political sciences, even people from engineering, or even from philosophy. Actually, people who study philosophy get to do a lot of things beyond their, the philosophical field.
Mm-hmm.
But because before I used to think that people who kind of study, human sciences, they kind of get to stay in the human science fields and kind of go on with a more academic career, but actually not. They kind of also have a lot of possibilities outside the human science world.
Well, it's still related to the humanities, isn't it? It's just that you have a broad topic to choose.
Right, but very often today when you're a consultant, you get to use a lot of you do a lot of Excel. That's what it is. You do a lot of Excel, you do a lot of PowerPoint, and often...
But who is the consumer of that data? The client, is it really?
In my case, for example, when I worked as a consultant, I specifically worked for public institutions. So what they might...
Wait a second, public institutions came to you to get some research done? Or consulting them?
Or just people, not specifically to me, of course, but to the company. And they might need people to come in and do the job, like to integrate their workforce.
Yeah.
It's also part of the job as a consultant. You're not always actually consulting. I mean, very often you're just integrating other workforces from corporations or public institutions or whatever.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, like for a while I've worked for this. What I was doing while I was a consultant, I used to live in Milan, Italy, and what happened, like for example, for a kind of a long period, I used to work for a specific institution, a local institution, a public institution that made that worked on work policies.
Work policies you mean public policy?
Yeah, public policy, like.
So wait a second, public agencies came to private companies to get consulting for public policy?
Basically, or in that case, more than consulting, it was more we need people because we have this intense work to do. We cannot hire extra people because in Italy, whenever you want to hire someone in the public, you have to make a public tender. Then you have to make a.
But they still need to do that if you.
They still need people, so they go outside, and but then in that case, it will be just a small one. I mean, you say, okay, I need a consulting company to do that, and so you'll have 3-4 consulting companies kind of come in and say, okay, I can do that for this amount of money, and one of them will win. Instead, if you want to really hire an extra person, you have to do an official exam and everybody can take it, and it takes much more time.
Because after the auditing job for the EU-funded projects, I went on to work at the agency that does the controlling of the public procurements in Latvia, right? And then I got curious how other countries manage their public procurements, because sometimes it seemed that we are too overzealous of getting every step controlled.
And then
because the it seems to me that the thing you described, I saw at the EU funded project job when I think some agency wanted to find out whether or not you can integrate the Baltic states, some market segments for whatever it was. So they made a public tender, and through that procurement, I think Ernst & Young won.
Oh.
And I remember the research was planned to be done during a year or so, and they had to present intermittent some reports, or interim reports rather. So yeah, I remember I checked those out and I said, well, I could have done this myself.
That's what it is. But that's exactly what it is.
But it seems pretty interesting that that's a real economic sector, consulting.
I've always wondered why, but yeah, it is.
But is it something new? I mean, was it around in the 80s or the 70s?
I mean, I guess most not. I don't know.
I would imagine that would be something of a new age trend.
Yeah, but I think most of the the big consulting companies of today, like the big four, like you mentioned, Ernst & Young, I think they started their operations back in the 80s. I'm not really sure, but
you mean when they were founded?
Yeah.
Let's just check.
No, maybe more.
We have the opportunity.
Yeah,
to do no bullshitting. So, Ernst and wait a second. Ernst & Young.
Ernst & Young.
Here it is.
Was it founded?
When was it founded? 89.
89.
Look at that. Look, wow.
Oh, through the merger of Ernst and Wayne. So, okay.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean.
1849.
But those were probably brokerage firms, wasn't it? Well, early history.
Probably evolved into. Yeah, so probably consulting in the kind of contemporary way of thinking of it. It's something that started in the 80s.
It doesn't say anything, does it? It just says, well, there were some mergers. So accountancy, it seems to me that they might be just brokerage firms, previous brokerage firms.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything.
The firm, or you can see what Alwyn C. Ernst used to do, because he founded Ernst & Ernst, American businessman.
Just a businessman, man.
Accounting
just
firm.
A business.
Okay, did accounting.
I always thought accounting firms did. Also a brokerage, at least in the USA. Because Cleveland. I mean, that's where Rockefeller started, wasn't it?
I guess. So they did bookkeeping service.
Yeah.
There.
So that's how you get rich, by being an accountant in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then just consulting people.
Yeah.
Management consulting. What the hell does that mean?
Basically, they come in and tell you how you should manage things.
Man, it sounds rather easy.
Yeah, to improve their performance. Yeah. But I'm not really sure they actually do. I think, as you said before, like in your thesis, you're the big guy of your subject. And I think that firms who've worked in a field for decades, they are the big guys of their field. I mean, there's no consultant coming from outside that knows better than you, I think.
Yeah, but do they know more than Google could tell me? At least for
I don't think so.
Some research.
I'm pretty sure if you're smart and motivated, you can do You can do it on your own, or you can become a consultant if you wish. Yeah.
Well, actually, I do provide consulting services. I'm just not aware of whether or not that would suit the traditional meaning of consulting.
In some
That's
cases,
why I'm asking.
I mean, if you're talking of, let's say, legal consulting.
Well, that
I
as
mean,
well.
You
That as well.
Probably, yeah. In theory, Google can tell you that, but as I'm not a lawyer, I wouldn't be able to go to Google and ask an exact question because I wouldn't know what to look for. I mean, I cannot write in Google, I have this and that problem, can you solve it? I mean, based on the law of Latvia.
It should be somewhere near.
It should be, but
nowadays.
I don't know. I wouldn't really know how to do it.
Well, Siri, are you able to help me? Yes.
Yes, I don't know.
Does actually it's an iPad, right?
Yeah,
does it have Siri?
I didn't activate it.
But it
would make
has
me
the option.
It has, but it would make me uncomfortable. So.
In what way?
I don't know. Feeling like it's alive.
Come on, man. Alive. What you talking about?
Maybe there's someone. Maybe there is someone on the other side of the iPhone store.
That would be funny if there would be just some Indian guy in Bangalore. Yes, what you need?
What do you need? Yeah, I mean, why not? Could be. I mean, I wonder, how many Apple devices are there in the world, and how many of them have Siri activated? And I just want to see if there are just enough people on the other side of the world.
I just feel if I would be in Apple's place, I would spy the hell out of people.
I guess they do.
They should. That would be
definitely do.
best practice in my standards, my book.
But you, I mean, whenever you start using one of these devices, you have to kind of agree on all these.
Nobody really reads them, right?
And whoever read those conditions.
I mean, you probably could find somebody who has read them, but definitely not many people. That's for sure.
I think I would really struggle to find someone who actually read all the conditions whenever you download a software, whenever you unzip a file. Have you ever read? I mean,
well, no, I mean, I'm definitely not bothered by that. Are you?
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I accept any condition. I'm cool.
Yeah. I mean,
but
that has some boundaries.
Someday someone might come and knock at your door and say, I actually own your kidneys because you kind of agreed
that would be a nice move, at least for organized crime.
Yeah, although I think it's actually legal because maybe I don't think you can actually
swipe right if you want your kidneys removed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do it. I mean, today we kind of swipe right for basically anything, but
are you actually into another field that you like more than consulting now?
I don't like consulting. I quit consulting.
Well, that's why I'm asking. I mean, you quit consulting.
I mean,
and
in the academia, I like it much more. I mean, there's.
How did you end up in academia?
Well, I was still working as a consultant, and I was kind of bored. I didn't like it anymore. I didn't really like it to begin with. But basically what I did while I was still working there, I basically Googled a few keywords of things that I could do and things that I like to do. So basically I had studied economics, so that's what I was. And I also kind of had an interest for languages, multicultural issues and stuff. So I Googled it.
Yeah.
And I kind of ended up on this institute in the University of Geneva that works on that kind of research, and they were looking for a research assistant for the project I'm working on, and that's how it went.
But you lived in Switzerland?
No, I lived in Milan back then.
Oh, so you went to Switzerland specifically for that position?
Yeah.
Ah.
Exactly. About 3 years ago.
So you have 2 years left?
Technically 1. It's gonna probably take a little bit more before the end of my thesis. It's gonna be probably 1.5 years.
And what then?
I don't know.
Because that seems to be one of the few things that's striking regarding the established educational field when it comes to higher education. I mean, my sister finished her PhD in the USA, right? And now she said that there's a project opening up and she will go to France for 1.5 years or so, right? And now I'm actually finishing, well, I'll probably finish in after the summer my PhD, but I definitely have not even looked at anything regarding doing something further, right?
Okay.
Whereas it seems for my sister, it was just a logical extension to do some project or whatever. In my case, it seems, well, you just have a degree, and something might useful come from your research thesis, but other than that, it's just done, right? And
What do you
go on.
work on? What do you do research on?
Well, my thesis is regarding the European financial sector,
Mm-hmm.
and since I'm in law, I'll just the main focus will be actually on the monetary system, inflation, and the protection of property rights within that system.
Okay.
And the biggest problem, or the biggest challenge rather, is actually to make the many connections between those three. Well, simply because you have different authorities for different issues.
Yeah.
And when it comes to property rights, yeah, usually you have, of course, the European Court of Human Rights. But other than that, it's up to the national courts to protect the property rights. Whereas inflation and monetary issues, at least in the Eurozone, are centralized nowadays.
Central Bank.
But when it comes to the inflation, I essentially when I started my thesis, my research, I just went around and talked to people. What do they feel is at least one of the biggest issues they could come up with, and many times inflation was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a relative of mine who asked me, well, what is inflation really needed for? And I was just a little bit surprised, because I don't really know whether or not it just happens. I told him at that point, but I'll try to find out. So what I afterwards did is I did before some interviews, but afterwards I did also interviews with people, let's say from private bankers who consult the government on investment things, or people who work at the financial controlling authorities regarding the financial market in Latvia, to former bankers, current bankers, or at least members of the board for a Latvian branch of a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So what is inflation needed for? So, no, don't know really, don't know. The only answer I got that was sort of an answer is that, well, inflation is technically a mechanism that prohibits the wealthy from resting. In a sense that if you wouldn't incur any inflation or loss of purchasing power, it would mean that you will start getting lazy. And well, I took that as an answer, but I didn't take that as a justification for anything.
Definitely not for the wealthy. I mean, the wealthy, they most of the time.
I mean, they have their assets most of the time.
Yeah, they do non-productive things. So
that's inflation proof. So yeah, that was the only answer that was an answer. The rest just shrugged their shoulders and moved on. And that's what I found most interesting, because at least from a legal perspective, you can clearly see that if you trade time for money and the money loses purchasing power, it means you are diminished of your property. And that's the most interesting aspect when it comes to the right to seigniorage, or the right to actually issue money,
mm-hmm.
right? And so in that case, I just attach credit creation as well from banks, just because I can make at least some points for the monetary and inflation issues out of the perspective for let's say private banking. Because private banking, at least from a legal perspective, has to protect most of the time the client's interests and everything in between. So I can go that route and pinpoint that, well, monetary issues are basically the same, just from a public authority perspective. So why wouldn't we actually want to do at least the similar principles, or apply the similar principles there? Well, the issue nowadays, you could say, well, because a central bank is basically an island in a government, it really isn't attached to anybody. So is it a problem? Is it not a problem? I haven't made up any decisive answer for that. I would guess that I won't even do that. I will just pinpoint that that's a question that might need addressing, simply because if you look at America, you might say, well, a private central bank is not the best way to go. Just a curious question, perhaps. And then you can say, well, what is the future for the Eurozone? And then just make up some generalization, because I wouldn't be able to give an exact answer. I mean, I'm not at Frankfurt. I'm not there, so to talk about it more in more precise terms would be just silly from my viewpoint. But what I can clearly say is that, all right, we have property rights. The property rights are actually not protected when it comes to inflation. There's no real government policy regarding that. And it seems to me that it should be in some way or another. So then I'll just probably make some, probably just take some already established economic theories and see what happens when it comes to applying in legal terms. Mm-hmm. So because the most curious thing about the topic is that somehow or another economists are not related to legal researchers, which is, in my mind, it's silly. It should be directly correlated.
Exactly what I was telling you about before. Mm-hmm. You might come up with a solution or a theory or something like, oh, this is great, but then as soon as you present it to someone else who's kind of has a different disciplinary background, they might be like, yeah, but you understand it's not possible to do that.
I get your point, but I suppose you mean more them commenting on you what you propose, for instance.
But instead of having that, instead of wasting a lot of effort on doing research on something and then having someone commenting negatively on it, because maybe rightly so, because it's what she did is maybe amazing from the theoretical perspective, but just useless because it's not possible for several reasons. Why not work together to begin with? So you kind of fine-tune each other at every step.
Yeah, but what you are talking about is integration between several researchers.
Yeah.
What I meant was actually training for both parties, that they have similar aspects when it comes to their own research, in the sense that if you are a legal researcher, you have the obligatory perspective from an economic viewpoint that is legitimate. And same with economists, because during these 3 years I've read I don't know how many pages of economic literature, and it always seems to me they go back to just some theoretical model, which is backed up by another hypothetical example, and it just seems to me, what?
Yeah.
Why?
But this already happens. I mean, in any... You said you studied law, but you probably took some exams in economics or basic introduction to something like economics.
If you mean regarding academics, then no, not at all. It's just private entrepreneurship regarding my family, and then because my first education is in accountancy. Okay. So you might say that is, before I went into law, but that's just another.
Well, that's just the case. That's
it wasn't related to the law studies at all.
Okay, but then it's something that it's changing though. Like me as a student, when I studied, I had to take exams in law as well, private law, public law.
You mean in Italy?
Yeah, and that happens in many. I mean, I guess law.
Oh, wait a second. Maybe we do have the same or at least similar things for our economic students, but it's not that much, I think.
It's not that much, but it provides
some basic concepts about the constitutional framework or something.
But the thing is that even if you had several exams on another disciplines, which are not your core disciplines, you're not going to have enough of preparation into those disciplines as you have in your own. So yeah, you can integrate knowledge into one person up to a point, but then it's really gonna be necessary to have more than one person who have deep knowledge in different things. And when it's a trade-off. If you have deep knowledge in something, you cannot. If you're a highly specialist person, you cannot be a generalist. If you're specializing a lot in something, you are losing on other.
That's the thing, because I think I don't know where it was coming from, but that the basic conclusion would be that if you are a real specialist in your field, you are able to actually describe all the necessary things quite quite compact, in a way that you don't need a whole book to explain something that has a merit in practical life, right? And in a way, I would guess that if you had some form of, all right, let's say you have cooperation between economists and lawyers, but you have limitations on what each of them can actually prepare when it comes to the amount of written material, for instance. If you limit that down, I suppose you might get more gems out of it, simply because people need to really focus. Because sometimes it seems that even in legal research as well, when you look at because I've read several PhD theses as well, just to make some impression what's the case in Latvia when it comes to those. Sometimes it seems they just make filler in there. It's not really needed. Yeah. But since you want to make a good impression with a big research paper, it seems to me that it's just a bunch of words.
But that's what it is, I guess.
And you can actually make it a lot shorter and with the same effect. Probably a better effect, since it's shorter and more understandable.
And you get to the point, and people
get to the point, exactly.
Get your point. I perfectly see your point, but it's not what they expect. I really think they expect other
for the looks. Kind of phases. It's for the looks. Yeah, that's for sure. And that's what I actually do. I just make the introduction and the ending comprehensive as possible. And then, because I know everybody will, at least more than the average, will read the introduction and the ending, the conclusions. And the middle is just free flowing. All right, what's more important than what's not? And then then just have those the beginning and ending as short as possible, as direct as possible, and the rest is just I have my references, I have my analysis. But I know you won't look at it even,
But you have to provide it anyway, because in case someone actually wanted to read, it has to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's gonna be someone, but there might be. So.
And again, I've talked to several people, and the funny thing was that actually, me being an accountant, for instance, when it comes to banking operations and credit creation. It wasn't that much of a surprise when I looked at how a credit operation is being accounted for in the balance sheet of a bank. It wasn't that much of a surprise, simply because I've written out my personal invoices and made the double entry accounting operations as well. So it's a sort of similar, right? But when I talked to people who I don't know, for instance, more boards of the member of the board, they didn't have a clue about it, and at that point I felt, but shouldn't you have a clue about how a bank creates credit and how that affects the banking balance sheet? It just felt to me quite wrong, because they knew of course about the criteria when it comes to how do they lend, what is a credit worthiness for them, but shouldn't you know how actually it's being fixed in the balance sheet? Just so you actually know the operation. And no, nobody really cared about it. And well, of course, I wasn't being rude or anything. I was polite, right? But my mind was really in my mind. I felt that, man, it's a little bit ridiculous. That if you lead a company, you would like to know how its operations are being done to the fullest. You don't have to be an accountant, but still you have to understand a little bit. And that's where I was most surprised by that. Actually, all those people told me They have a basic understanding of accountancy. All right. And what it turns out, people like to think that they have a basic understanding of accountancy when they are able to actually look at a balance sheet and
Yeah.
understand what the assets and the liabilities mean. That's it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
all right, so that's the understanding of for accounting for them. So all right, that's something I need to address for sure. So I did that in several publications, and what I noticed, nobody knows what I'm talking about. It's just because I combine economic, accounting, and legal research in one paper, for instance, and
Mhm.
it's just too much. When I spoke at some conferences and look at the people's eyes, they're all glassy. They're just right. It's just, and so what I did then is to figure out that a video might be the best way to actually address those things, because when I did publications, I always did audio articles, so I just read them, dictated them, recorded them, and afterwards, I just started. And this year, actually, I started making video commentaries, just because, all right, maybe YouTube will bring some light, because then
That's a
people
good
can
idea.
actually cross-reference, cross-research, and maybe that will help. And then when I speak at next conferences, I'll tell them, well, you can check out
Just look me up on
just some
on
marketing,
YouTube.
right? You put it in your slides
Yeah.
where you can see your videos, some files. So yeah, I'm not sure whether or not it's really made an impact, but it's definitely something fresh, at least in
Yeah.
Latvia. And afterwards, I will just basically emphasize that. Well, look, it's a sort of a difficult topic, but sometimes you need to understand difficult topics to at least a certain extent.
Mhm.
I'll try to make it as easy as possible. So here you go, right? And then will be, I don't know, maybe questions regarding the. Again, I expect only questions regarding the conclusions or the ending parts, simply because I spoke to my supervisor about how to simplify things, and he basically told me, well, I mean, there's only so much you can do. I mean, you have to write what is to be written.
Yeah.
You won't make other terms for the specific nuances. So try your best, but there's only so much you can do. So all right, do my best. So that's why I want the ending to be really sweet and concise and understandable for a 5-year-old. But but the analysis part, I mean,
Yeah.
the accountants will understand their part, the economists will understand their part,
Oh yeah.
and the legal
Yeah.
researchers regarding the property rights will understand their part.
That part.
And I hope
Oh.
some cross pollination will happen, but then we'll see.
Yeah.
Because that's the funny thing. Most of the time, when you look at, for instance, the legal act projects, for instance, when you want to make a new law, you have to write an annotation regarding the evaluation. So why is it needed? What will it be? Its impact, and so forth. And usually it's just standard texts. It's basically some junior officer at the ministry just typing in, and then the
Yeah.
senior officer, all right, green lighting it, right? So it's no real analysis in a way. And that would be somewhat of a critical point from me, just saying it's not that difficult to Google. You can still Google, but
Yeah.
do a little bit more research. That's
Yeah.
it. It's just make 2 sentences that make sense, perhaps, because you all often see literally projects for legal acts that have some monetary, let's say, compensation for something or whatever, right? And then you have the standard question: the impact on the public budget,
Mhm.
none, right? So of course you will have those kinds of impacts, but nobody really, just fill it out, whatever. And of course, not 100% of those annotations are like that. But if you can find some, it means all right, something that, because that should be an albino, that should be a really rare exception, but it is not.
Yeah.
So that's the procedure I'm looking to at least alter a bit. Simply because you can make, because that's the beauty of legal research. You can make criteria as long as you can think of any topic. I mean, you can develop your own criteria, and when they are related to previous established principles,
Yeah.
then you are just moving within those principles,
Yeah.
but you establish specific criteria according to your needs.
That's interesting. Actually, my girlfriend, who I was trying to share the link with, I don't know if it worked, is also doing a PhD in law.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all research people here.
Yeah. Well, still only one watching, so no, your girlfriend, your girl is not here.
And I had no idea what people would do as a research in law.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what do you do? Do you research laws? Like literally, do you look up laws or something?
It depends.
But then I'm kind of I'm starting to understand what it actually means, and it's more of a something that goes more, if I understood it correctly, something that goes more to the meaning of the laws and the principles that underlie them, and to see if they kind of go in certain directions or certain other directions, or if there are holes in some gray areas, and kind of.
So what's the topic of her research?
She's working on oh my god, she's gonna kill me. No, I know it. I just don't know how to phrase it. On she's working on ethical issues of transparency in public administration. And how workers in like public workers, so people working in the public administration, how you can ensure that their work is transparent and complies with certain principles of transparency. I'm thinking of another word which doesn't come to my mind.
Well, transparency is a word they use.
Yeah, transparency is a word, but there's another word, when it comes to being correct in the way you work, which is more than transparent. You also have to be honest, and
sure. For public administration needs, they have several big principles that they
integrity. I was thinking of integrity. That's the word. So when you're an integer person, does it make sense? Or you have a certain degree of integrity, the system, if the system has complies with certain principles of integrity, it's obviously going to comply with transparency and other principles, such as you don't want to make things, you want to avoid situations in which people might have double interests in different parts, and so work in favor of instead of working in favor of the public, of the people, you work for the specific interest of someone or of a specific collection of individuals, which might be a corporation.
Actually, that's one of the questions I asked our ministry for. I think it would be called law or for legal matters, because the thing is, right? The Constitution states that we have a democratic republic.
Yeah. And
so I asked, so what part is democratic then? Because a democracy is not possible within a republic. So either a state is a republic or a democracy.
Oh.
Since we are a republic, so what part is the democratic? So
can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, usually the legal philosophers of our times try to state that when you have a democratic republic, it means that you have an indirect democracy.
I see your point.
Which would probably mean that I think even Switzerland is being mentioned as a direct democracy.
It is.
And then everybody says, well, an indirect democracy would be that you have actually some parts in between. So you don't actually participate in the decisions,
devolve
but you
your-
somehow actually do participate in the decision-making process
Yeah.
in general. Well, and then the question is then, well, but that's the republic then, because republic is the public cause. So of course you will participate in the decision-making. In a republic you do that, but in a democracy you actually need the majority. That's how it works, right? So, and they wanted to. Well, I suppose they will still try to just get rid of me simply because. Because the first answer they sent me was, well, we don't participate in academic debates. So no, because I had a specific question and I attached the reason why I asked the specific question. So and they told me, well, we don't engage. It's not our aim or cause of the ministry to participate in academic debates. So we won't provide any answer. So, well, let me clarify my question then. I specified it, and then I expect them to answer me something similar. They already mentioned, but the reason why I asked was pretty simple. In let's say in a case where you have a parliament of, well, we have a parliament of 100 people, right?
Okay.
And if that parliament decides on anything, whatever they want, with a 51 majority, it's legal. It's the Constitution allows it. Now, it might not be democratic, in the sense that the majority wouldn't of the people, the majority wouldn't actually approve of that decision. So my question was, all right. So can we say that the 51 parliamentarians deciding of something that 51% wouldn't be approving from the population is legal, is constitutional, but it is not democratic.
But the thing is that you don't know. Maybe the 51%. I mean, you have to go to run surveys to.
So I added.
Know
so I added the. So is the premise that everything that the parliamentarians do is already a priori
presumed to be represented
in the majority interests, right? So because the Constitution states democratic republic, so I tell them essentially in my question, does it mean that the democratic part is just that you need a majority in the parliament, and that's it? Not in the majority of the population, it's just a majority in the parliament, in the decision-making body, because a republic means that the population is not involved directly in its decision-making, but they somehow or another make a body or agency or whatever that will make the decisions in the interests of the public. That's the presumption, right? That the public cause is being furthered by a specific organ in the country. So, but the democratic part is that, I would guess, and just in that organ, that they will decide within the majority voting within that organ. If they decide to screw everybody in the population with a 51 majority, then it's democratic, because in the republic that will be democratic, right? So that was my reason for asking, because if they give me some gem, I can use it in my research, and not to make fun of them, but to actually specify them, because I read we have commentaries on our Constitution on several articles, and it's a thick book. For instance, regarding the section where the article is for that our country is a democratic republic. And they just evade the question. They evade the question totally. Well, a democracy is something, blah, blah, blah. A republic is blah, blah, blah. So we have an indirect democracy, and democracy is so important because of blah, 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 blah. And they just say what a democracy is, why it's good, whatever. But so why did you evade the question? So what is the democratic part of the republic?
Makes sense, because it's a democratic republic. And to me, it makes sense if you kind of explain it like you did, because otherwise, if it were the other case, I would rather talk of a republican democracy, like where you actually have the 51% of the people working on the public thing. But that's not what it is.
Yeah.
And so to me, it makes sense to call it a democratic republic. I cannot really talk about that because I'm not an expert, definitely not a legal philosopher.
Well, really, nobody is.
But my two
that's the biggest
pennies
problem.
on that,
because that's the, it's sort of, I mean, I've heard of Latvian legal historians who say that's almost an ancient debate. What part can be democratic? Can a democracy even exist, a pure democracy? And is the republic the only solution for a democratic cause, right? But that's definitely the issue, that a democracy cannot exist side by side with a republic. It's either or. So the additive that it's always just a democratic republic, right?
Yeah.
But it seems to me somehow directional. Yeah, we want to be in the majority's interests, but the thing why I was asking, well, would it be constitutional to say that no? I mean, 90% are against of the population, but 51 in the parliament voted, so it's all good, right? Because technically, it's not the aim of the constitution. Technically, it should be for the people in general. But if you have the legal norm, then you have the legal norm. So, and of course, nobody will give me an exact answer simply because there is no answer. That is sort of a philosophical one. But I'm just curious about what, because I told them, since you are the ministry who is responsible for the legal process in our country, I would like to know, where do you have your checklists, and what are your checklists regarding several things? Because the funny thing is, if we would be so democratic, then why the hell do we have a constitutional court that once in a while says, well, something is unconstitutional, right? It shouldn't have happened if we have democratic
I see your point.
processes, right? But still, and that's the biggest issue for me, at least, that you have something that is legal, but it might not be lawful or constitutional in a sense. So I would like to make the distinction where the constitutionality and the legality collide, and whether or not it is within, let's say, several bodies of the state, or whether or not it has to has some aspect in the population. Because what I'm guessing is that it has no relation to the population. It only has the relation to the public bodies established by the population. Because the reason why I would like to actually make the point, at least in some small paragraph in my research, is simple. Because I was at one conference in Latvia where a Danish professor spoke about a 20th century legal philosopher, a German legal philosopher, who had sort of a simple conclusion that there is no real there is no real law. It's just a matter of force, and then just putting that force into binding acts. Because if some institution says we are the institution who makes the law, then you might ask that institution, well, by what law are you allowed to enact laws? Well, somebody had to make the first law, right? And so that's the basic law. I don't know if it's called a dilemma, but still, that's the basic law or the first law principle, and it's just a matter of who was in power, in a physical sense almost. Who was the one who, all right, so we are here, well, we might as well say that we represent everybody in the country. Yeah, sure, all right, go ahead. So we make up the norm. We say, everybody, look, these are the rules. These rules are binding sort of to us as well, because we made them, we agreed to them, right? And then everybody else has to follow them. Because and the reason is not because I want to philosophize, but actually to find out why our constitution doesn't say anything about money, for instance, or monetary issues whatsoever. That is what's curious to me, simply because I make the point in my research that almost 90% of the day in our civilization is somewhat related to monetary or property issues. And yet, we don't really talk about money when it comes to our legal framework. So, what's up with that? I'm not saying that there should be a conspiracy theory behind it, but I'm saying, well, it might be the case that somebody didn't do their homework correctly, because you could have expected in the 20th century that money will be a big issue in the future still, because it was at that time. So why not be 100 years from now? So you might as well say something about money, because I will make the example from USA about the dollar being silver, and yeah, so that's what I want to actually establish, at least in Latvia. But I'm not sure whether or not that would be interesting to, let's say, a Swiss person, because I suppose Switzerland has not that big of a issue relating to banking and money. It's just world famous for that.
Well, when it comes to Switzerland, I mean, what I learned over time is that you always have to pay attention to what you say about the country, because
You mean in Switzerland?
Yeah, because Switzerland is a federation.
Mhm.
I mean, officially it's called a confederation, but it's in fact it's a federation, and it really is, in the sense that the cantons differ quite a lot one from the other. There are very few things which are managed at a federal level, and like such as currency, so monetary policy, or a few fiscal issues, some very little federal taxes. Then of course national defense, a few other energy policy, a few other things, and all the rest is managed by the cantons. So you cannot really say, oh, Switzerland has that or Switzerland has that, because very often you mean that very canton has that very canton has that. And when you speak of financial issues, you're probably talking of cantons such as Geneva, or a few others, which are, those cantons are very known for the whole financial market. But then if you're referring to the banking secret, like you can have an account in a bank and you can be sure that it's going to be secret. It's no longer like that. It hasn't been like that for a few years now.
Yep.
You can only have a secret account if you're from the I mean, if you reside in the country and you have a local account, you earn your money on the country. But if you're from abroad, like it used to be, a lot of people from abroad, they all sent their, say, black dirty money to Switzerland. It was like that before. It's no longer like that, or at least it's kind of changing. So actually, I don't know the law in Switzerland well enough to actually, I don't know it. I know very little, so I cannot really elaborate more on that. But the only thing I can tell you is just you have to be kind of very careful when you kind of mention Switzerland in any kind of issue, because it is a very diverse country.
Except maybe the Olympics.
What do you mean?
Well, then you can surely say, "Oh, these are people from Switzerland, represent Switzerland, not a Geneva canton or whatever."
No, yeah, true, of course. In competitions.
Do the cantons have their separate identity as well, in a way of hymns or
if I'm not
mistaken,
a few years ago, they did a survey to kind of ask people if they felt their cantonal identity, if they felt that their cantonal identity was stronger than the national identity, and apparently most people did. They kind of felt more attached to their local origin than they are to the country. But of course, when it comes to it really depends. Actually, I think it's like that for a lot of people. I mean, if you're talking to people from your own country, then you're probably gonna stress your local origin. But when you're faced to people who come from outside the country, you are probably gonna feel the national identity a little bit stronger.
Sort of like Americans.
I have no idea. I've never been to the US. I don't know that many Americans.
Because I would imagine they just are patriotic when it comes to state or interstate relationships, and when again.
When you say patriotic, you mean like?
Well, we're from
state.
Yeah. We're from a separate state where we are in the state, right? We represent the state, and then when they go abroad, it's just Americans. It's just
But
Americans.
I guess that applies to many cultures.
Isn't Italy divided in several separate regions almost?
Yeah, 20 regions.
Because I've heard that you wouldn't be able to actually call Italy just a one-piece country.
No, it is, definitely is. I mean, it's slightly moving towards more of a federation.
Because I thought that even economically, the South is different
that's a whole
from
different
the
story.
North.
That's a whole different
Politically,
story.
it was also divided in several regions that have their own life.
Well, culturally, okay, so we have to separate two things. Like officially, legally, constitutionally, it's one country.
Yeah, sure.
And it's actually pretty centralized country. Slowly, starting from the early 2000s, it's been kind of getting more of some characteristics of a federation. More powers have been devolved to regions, but it's not definitely at the level of Germany. It's much less of a federation than Switzerland, of course. It's much closer to France in the idea of a central state.
All right.
And that's what it officially is. But then if you speak of it, if you're kind of speaking of the cultural and social aspects, then it is. I mean, you can really tell differences. I mean, culturally speaking, you can say that Italy is divided in, I wouldn't say 3 parts, but 2 parts. Normally you speak of north, center, south, but I'd say just north and south for cultures, because you are able to see some major differences in the way people do things, live their life. But there again, you only see them if you have lived in the country for a while. You're kind of familiar with a lot of things. But if you look at Italians from outside, I tend to believe that people from the outside, they see Italians as a one people with kind of certain characteristics. Economically speaking,
I almost always just think Super Mario. That's it. That's it. Luigi.
Mario. Yeah.
How do actually Italians feel about those things?
It's fine. I mean, Italians are almost always very self-ironic. They kind of laugh on most of the cliches and non-cliches that are about themselves.
Because I don't even know the story behind it, because the game was developed in Japan, right?
Japan by Nintendo.
Yeah, so they didn't even have relations to Italy.
I don't know, but I would to Japan. I don't know, but if it had been an American thing, I would say like probably when it was developed, there were a lot of plumbers which were like that came from Italy. But in Japan, I'm pretty sure there were not that many.
Yeah,
but I don't know. We can look it up if you wish.
Probably, but where do we start?
Just
the origin of Super Mario
and see the first paragraph is gonna be Super
Mario.
Nice how we kind of switch from management consulting to Super Mario.
Super Mario. So where's the history of Super Mario?
1985 Super Mario.
85.
Oh, click on Super Mario Bros. Maybe that's.
So plot, gameplay. It doesn't.
Development.
Oh wait a second. It's the successor of our Mario Brothers. All right. So it's a platform, many advanced series in the game. Mario is portrayed as an Italian-American plumber.
Oh, Italian-American. Okay,
who, along with his younger brother Luigi, has to defeat creatures. The gameplay focuses on Mario's extermination. Well, positively by critics. Gameplay development. So was created by Shigeru Miyamoto and Gunpei Yokoi, 2 of the lead developers for the Donkey Kong. So Mario was in Donkey Kong first.
Oh, this is getting complicated.
Yokoi suggested to Miyamoto that you should be able to fall from any height, which Miyamoto was not sure. So, a popular story of how Mario went from Jumpman to Mario is that an Italian-American landlord, Mario Segale, had barged in on Nintendo of America's staff to demand rent, and they decided to name Jumpman after him.
Oh, okay.
Miyamoto also felt that the best setting for this game was New York because of its labyrinthine subterranean network of sewage pipes. Oh.
Okay, well, this popular
So
story.
just
we don't know
a
if it's
landlord
true.
then. So just a landlord then.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so no, I actually never. I think when I was a child, I never really realized it was Italian.
I mean, yeah, it's just a sketchy figure. Not
To me, it was
not
just
really
a
part of
name.
popular culture.
Yeah, it has the moustache.
But you played, right? You played Super Mario.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
When I was a child, well, more like this Super Mario, like the first ones, and actually the second and third one. More than playing it, I used to watch my brother doing it because he was older, so I was very young.
Damn, that's almost like the initial start of watching other people play games.
Yeah,
Because nowadays that's an industry.
now it's streamed on YouTube, and back then it was.
Actually, that's one of the things that I thought maybe I should do as well.
Do you play games?
Well, I mean, I used to play games, but nowadays, I mean, because I feel that games allow you to actually develop some at least motor skills or pattern
Coordination,
recognition and
yeah.
stuff like that. Other than that, it's just storyline
Yeah.
most of the time.
What kind of games do you play, or did you play?
Well, I liked the game Age of Empires, which was a strategic game. Well, I played Half-Life as well. Counter-Strike for a while, and before that, probably everything that was either shooting or fighting related. So, for instance, on the PlayStation, when the PlayStation came out in the
Yeah.
90s, I liked Tekken.
Tekken. I knew you were about to say that.
Yeah.
I also played Tekken. It was
Yeah, man.
probably my first game.
Pretty nice.
Mm.
So yeah, those kinds of games. And other than that, oh well, chess. Other than that,
Yeah,
just chess. On a computer, for instance.
Oh, okay. Like you play pinball and solitaire.
No, not really.
I used to play solitaire on my Windows 95 when I was like 7 or.
Well, everybody used to play it a little bit, but not really that in an addictive sense. I mean, I played, I would say, of course, GTA.
Oh yeah,
Or-
GTA. Oh, with whom was I talking about? Oh yeah, I was talking about GTA few. Oh, can you, without looking it up, can you guess when it was? When it came out?
GTA?
San Andreas.
Why San Andreas?
Because we were talking about that one in particular.
So
And we were kind of wondering how long ago.
San Andreas was, I think, 2005 or 2006.
Fuck, you're accurate. It's actually 2004. But yeah, this friend and I were kind of guessed like 2007, 2008, and it was quite off. So it was much earlier.
I think they, well, what was the last one? GTA 5?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I've kind of lost track of
Because
video
that's
games.
one of the biggest, right? It's like biggest selling games.
Probably. I've really lost track of video games in
Yeah, me too.
the past years.
Me too.
Um,
But that's what I thought, because if you have, let's say, a guest over, if I establish the equipment so that it's just really comfortable, just easy, don't have to hold anything,
yeah.
then we could just have something of a multiplayer going on, right? And then there will be just content you can upload, because you can stream video games without any problems.
Yeah.
Because I like, let's say, actually what I like is when people get together and then they just figure, we should look up something, right? In that particular case, so we looked up Mario, right? That was just
Yeah.
easy reading. But sometimes you would like to look up, let's say, a video,
Yeah.
and then it gets tricky. Because I haven't looked into the policy that much, but as far as I know, it's really complicated when you want to not re-upload, but
Restream. Yeah, I see.
you want to show something that's already on YouTube, for instance, and you might get pulled or flagged because that's other copyright.
Yeah.
So it's a bit tricky. But for games, it's not the case. For any software use, it's not the case. Let's say I could switch over to my desktop. Wait a second. Yeah. Switch to my desktop. No problem.
Oh, okay. Cool.
They can see all the tabs or,
Yeah, sure.
or open boxes, whatever. It's no problem. But yeah, when I would be streaming something from another video, that might get tricky.
Hey, how many people are watching?
I think it's still one.
Thousands of.
I think
yeah,
still
still
one. Yeah, a strong one.
Maybe it's a different one.
Maybe
knows?
that's changed. Yeah.
But we were talking about before Mario. Oh yeah, about cliches and stuff from Italy. Yeah, most of the time, Italians are very. They can easily laugh about themselves. I mean, and most of the time, Italians are aware of all the drawbacks that they have. But I think Italians might very easily get angry if you kind of criticize food, because that's something they kind of really care about. And if you start talking about football, that's also something they really care about. But for the rest, they can laugh on on anything most of the time. I wanted to ask you a cultural question.
Go ahead.
How close or how far are, culturally speaking, the Baltic countries? Because we tend to, actually, to be honest, and I'm sorry for that.
For what?
For what I'm about to say.
Sure. Don't worry.
For most people, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are one. Of course, they know there are three countries, but they kind of see them as a unity. It kind of messed them up. And I tend to remember which is which, because Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania are in alphabetical order. And then now I know that Riga is for sure the one in Latvia. I know that. I tend to remember Tallinn as been the one that is tall, so up.
Yeah.
And by exclusion, the third one is Vilnius, and that's in Lithuania. But that's how far it gets when you kind of want to think of the Baltic countries. You see them as one unit.
Yeah, well, that's decent.
Now I know that. Now I know. I'm kind of more aware because I've been at least to one of them. But I wanted to know how culturally close or maybe super far they are.
Well, if you would ask me, then it's just pretty simple. We are definitely separated when it comes to the culture, but we are definitely united when it comes to the history. So the Soviet Union was probably the biggest uniting factor for us. Other than that, I'm not really even sure whether or not there was some sort of alliances back in the day. So I would need to probably double check on that on some Wikipedia page or whatever. But when it comes to the uniting part, it seems to me that it's just based on the antagonism from the East. So when you have a big bully, you tend to round up your forces together with other ones, and so everybody's a friend at that point. But other than that, I mean, today, for instance, Alex came, and before him, a Lithuanian girl.
I met her yesterday.
Yeah. Oh, right, yeah. So she was from Lithuania. She's from Lithuania, right? But when I spoke to her about what would be the proper way to call her a sort of friendly way as a sister, in a general sense that Lithuanians, Latvians like family, she told me the word for a sister that it's not related in Latvian at all.
Even language?
Yeah. I mean, even though our languages are sort of at the same language tree, I mean, I wouldn't be able to understand most of it. So other than that, I mean, all are white people, generally speaking. All are connected via internet. All have sort of cultural impact from Russian-speaking cultures. Well, mainly Russia and some Belarus and Ukraine and other parts. But other than that, just separate countries.
Okay.
So the only uniting factor would be probably when it comes to the economy, because for instance, food manufacturing in Lithuania is definitely so big that it actually sort of drives out sometimes even Latvian products out of Latvian markets. So I mean that's just a competition issue, I guess, because Lithuanians are just bigger, so they can compete better in a way. But other than that, yeah, I would definitely say that. I mean, for instance, I was a couple of months ago in Tartu in Estonia. I felt like a foreigner in a foreign country. That's for sure.
So it's definitely not like the Balkan countries.
Probably not. Probably not. Because I mean, the history when it comes to this territory is, again, it's always related to some foreign enemy.
Yeah.
Whether it was Russia, Germany, Sweden,
but it's never been
Poland.
a single. Never in the past has it been a single country.
Well, maybe in the Middle Ages. I mean, you had Livonia, Livonian territory. Other than that, nope. That would be probably maybe in the some I don't know, some I don't know, divided small parts of the history. But other than that, no. It's just really separate territories, separate. I would say even cultures, simply because. I mean, when I meet Lithuanians and when I have been to Lithuania and Estonia, I just literally see a different country. It's not like I would, this seems so familiar.
So it's very different from Balkan people, because I remember at the university I had quite a lot of people from either Serbia or Croatia or Bosnia, and they would tend to sit together. They would definitely sit together.
But do they have a similar language?
They have this. I don't want to say that because they might kill me. But 20 years ago, you had Serbo-Croatian, which was the language of Yugoslavia.
I suppose Alex should know more about this.
Yeah, definitely. The Balkan countries back before the fall of the Yugoslavia, which was in 1991.
But wait a second, that was the reason why. They spoke one language. Yeah, but that was the reason why they broke up, because they didn't want to sit together. But
culturally,
right?
more culturally speaking, not the language. I mean, apart from Slovenian, which is, I guess, Slovenian and Macedonian are different, are slightly different languages. But Croatian, Serbian, Bosnian, they are. Perfectly mutually understandable. Now they're kind of changing it a bit, but it's more of like the words you would pick, but they are perfectly
that
understandable.
Definitely helps. I mean, if we could talk directly with Estonians and Lithuanians other than English, definitely would help the relationship. That's for sure. But
the fact that you don't speak the same language, it means that they are different people.
Yes,
really different.
And that's actually one probably factor that's beneficial for the Slavic countries, I suppose, because many times you have many Russian-speaking people all over the place when it comes to the East.
Yeah.
So that's why actually they like. Let's say that's the reason why Russians like to go to Riga, for instance, or to Latvia for vacation, simply because they will find many people still speaking Russian. So, language is definitely the biggest factor. That's for sure.
Definitely.
But other than that, I view the 21st century as something completely unique in that regard. I mean, in what other time could an Italian dude that's living in Switzerland meet up with a Latvian dude and speak comprehensively about anything that they fancy?
That's because we have a common language, definitely.
But would it be that the case if we wouldn't have internet? Probably not that much.
Oh no, of course not. I mean, English has the chance of being so diffused and so widespread because you can do it without physically going there. You can.
But see, that's the thing. What would you say the proficiency of English is in Italy?
Oh, pretty low, I'd say.
Even for the youth.
Yeah, it's obviously in the youth it's much higher than elderly people, but even people who are educated, very often they might probably not speak a word. They do sometimes, and when they do, it's very often poor. There are people who are proficient, but it's a very small minority.
And so what would be the comparison to Switzerland in that regard?
Well, Switzerland again. Switzerland is a special case because it's a multilingual country.
Hmm?
People are used to the fact that there are different languages, and they kind of probably pick up languages a little bit faster than other people because again, they're used ever since they're born to the idea. They're exposed to different languages. They very often they do not speak. Italian speakers in Switzerland, they often speak also French and German, like they learn it.
Mm-hmm.
German speakers, they often speak, sometimes they speak French, and French speakers, sometimes they speak German. But in the past, they used to communicate more in French, even though French is still a minority because the greater part of the population speaks German.
All right. That's the what's it called, Schweizerdeutsch?
Yeah, exactly. It depends. The standard, the official language is High German, which is the same as in Austria and in Germany. But what they use for basically any situation which is not school or not like very formal situations, they would communicate in Swiss German, which is a dialect of German.
Which is just a funny way of speaking German. Isn't it?
No, it's just different. I mean, it's mutually understandable with I guess Austrian and Bavarian. So all the southern part of the belt where German is spoken.
Yeah.
I guess people from the northern part of Germany would have much of a harder time to understand Swiss German, but it differs quite a bit. I speak German, but I understand very, very little Swiss German, and only if it's spoken like straight to me and slowly I can guess something, but it's really hard. I think that people from Germany who move to Switzerland, which are a lot of people, they kind of learn to understand it in a few months. I guess not many learn to actually speak it, but I guess the Swiss are fine if you kind of can have a conversation like.
The Swiss understand German, so
of course they it's their language.
Sure.
I mean, it's not to doubt that they understand German. They can also speak German with no problem, but it's just that it makes them feel more comfortable if they can talk to you in Swiss German, and then if you reply in German, it's just fine.
Interesting.
But the thing is that
do you have that something similar in Italy as well? Probably not, right?
No, because you don't have
Italian is just a language, right?
You have several dialects. I mean, you have hundreds of dialects in Italy, but nobody.
Man, I should look into that because I would like to see what's a funny Italian dialect then, because it always seems
so many
so similar.
And actually, they are very different from one part to the other.
Really?
And they kind of, I mean, of course, if you're from a specific city, you can tell that the other person, if he's speaking dialect, is from the city next to yours. It can change quite a bit, and of course, the further you get to from where you're from, the harder it is to understand.
Yeah. And
you can roughly, I guess, individuate a few groups of mutually understandable dialects. But then other of those groups, it's really hard to understand each other. I'd say people from the south understand northern dialects better than northern people understand southern dialects, because Italian itself... No, actually not, because Italian itself is a northern dialect. It's Florence dialect, if you want, with some minor modification. But as all people who speak a southern dialect also speak Italian, it's quite as if they spoke a southern dialect and a northern dialect. So they can understand northern dialect a little bit better.
I see what you mean.
While northern dialect people, they speak northern dialect and another northern dialect, no southern dialect. So they would have a hard time, because the phonetics of the language is quite different in southern dialects than it is from standard Italian.
I never even thought about that Italy might have even separate dialects.
Oh, so many, you wouldn't believe it. But the thing is that during like starting from the 50s, the country invested a lot in harmonizing education and the language.
It seems to be the pattern for all European countries,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because funny but not so funny story is that Italy had major issues with communication due to this fact, because back in World War One and World War Two,
Yes.
soldiers wouldn't be able to understand each other because they would only be able to speak their own dialects, and if they weren't from the same part of the country, they wouldn't understand each other.
That's definitely limiting. That's for sure.
And that's quite an issue during war, And
So there you have it. You need education to go to war.
yeah,
Effectively.
or education not to go to war if you want.
Well, that's a dream.
Yeah, but I guess the idea is that you want educated people.
Because I thought I've heard something about the Prussian army being the role model for modern day education. That's what I've
Prussian
heard.
army?
The Prussian army, yes.
Why is that?
I don't know. I've just heard it somewhere in some German video. I don't remember where exactly, but that the Prussians in the whatever it was 1700s or something like that
Okay.
established a disciplined army and the regiment and education for the army, so that in some ways became the main frame for actually educating the civil population as well.
Yeah, but I
And
guess
so
this-
that it swapped over to Germany, and from Germany it just started to spread. But hey, what do I know?
No, but the thing is that this kind of education, like military-based education, used to be a thing before, but it's less and less of a thing now. I guess students especially in primary and secondary school, they're kind of given a lot of freedom, individual.
But having the regard, I don't know how it was with you, but I think we had it in our primary school, even that when the teacher comes in, you stand up, and in a sense that you greet him, right? And in the sports physical exercise, you had to get in line, count each other. In a sense, that is somewhat
it
similar.
was when I was in school.
Because discipline. Well, I suppose the main idea was that disciplined work was something that started in the army, and then when after the Industrial Revolution, they figured that they need workers in the factories or whatever. They have to actually have an educated population, at least so they can work in the factories or whatever.
Yeah, but that's not an educated population. That's a population that
trained,
does the job.
The trained population.
Yeah, that's a trained. It's not
but
really
it's
educated.
Still, yeah, but the training was the educational system in a sense.
Yeah. Okay, I agree on that. But I guess what we want now is more people who are able to stop and think and kind of get to an answer.
Actually, we talked about it with Alex today. That how many people do we consider to be really free thinking? Not that many, in the sense that you still have some limitations.
I guess nobody's free thinking, because you're always, no matter what, provided a language which you don't choose.
Yeah, that affects
and
a lot.
language affects your way of thinking.
Yeah.
The way you express yourself affects your way of reasoning or having a train of thought. And that's something you don't choose. You receive a certain education before you're actually able to understand what you're receiving.
Probably.
You go to school, and when you go to school, you're still not able to understand. And by the time you understand certain things, it's definitely too late to remove these things.
Well,
and so,
I wouldn't say too late. It's just becoming more difficult to change them, wouldn't it?
I think it's difficult to a point where it's close to impossible. I mean,
statistically, probably that's true, in a sense that there are not that many successful examples.
I mean, that's what when you do a policy, that's what you bet on. Statistics. You want to have a majority of results so that you can call it effective. I mean, if you have one or two deserters, who cares?
Well, but those are the ones you would like to actually study. Those who do something out of the ordinary. or at least achieve something out of the ordinary.
Yeah, but how do you do that? Like, how do you
Yeah, man,
get
that's
to
the question.
how do you get
That's
to
the
another
question.
level of reflection? Normally, when you do want to get to when you want to have the ability to learn, to reflect, to think, what you do is you read, and you listen, and when you read something, you're reading something that was written by someone else.
Yeah.
You cannot you cannot come up with
second-hand
that.
information.
Yeah, so you can never come up, like, to actually get to the point of being able to generate new thoughts. You have gone through a lot of, receiving thoughts of other people. So I really challenge you to, okay, now I know I should get all these things away from me and generate new thoughts. But if you take all these things away from you, then you're back to the level where you weren't able to actually produce, ideas, new ideas, or just ideas that make sense.
Well, I guess the answer is drugs.
Oh,
Just
why
drugs.
not?
Just use drugs.
Yeah, but then you're not going to be very productive.
Well,
Or maybe super productive.
at least you'll have fun.
It depends on the kind of drug we're talking about, but
for
yeah.
sure.
And consulting, I guess they use quite a bit of certain type of drugs.
You mean recreationally? Sure.
Recreational, and also boosting aid.
Oh damn, that's just silly.
Yeah, it's silly, but they do, I guess.
Well, then they just sponsor Red Bull and the illegal market for amphetamines.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say about actually Italian? What would be the proper word for that?
Say it in Latvian.
Well, no, I mean the Italian culture for getting not boozed, but still getting
Yeah, I see.
well, not drunk. What's the word to just
Tipsy.
well, tipsy is still for alcohol, isn't it? But I mean,
It
to
is,
affect
yeah.
your
Like high.
yeah, to get high and tipsy.
Oh, excited, like, or
to
amused, or
to use any kind of substances to
affect your emotional state.
to enhance your recreational fun.
We're finding a lot of nice ways to saying kind of waste yourself, but yeah, I see it's not what you mean.
Yeah.
I think Italians have a good relationship to alcohol because you kind of have a culture of drinking wine.
But how long is that? I mean, I suppose that's
how far you go when drinking.
Probably at least a couple of 100 years, right?
Oh, the culture of wine?
Yeah. Oh, well, that probably
no.
to the Roman Empire then.
Yeah, definitely.
But do Italians consider themselves any heirs to the Roman Empire?
No. I guess sometimes
Because the Greeks would be probably the first ones to claim that spot in a way, right? In the sense that they were the ancestors to the Roman Empire, and still the culture was somewhere related.
Yeah, definitely related. I don't know if they are physically related. Like,
I don't know either.
some Greeks moved to southern Italy. That's a fact, but I don't know if they're genetically related. When people say like, you're here, like Italians, they are heir of people of like ancient Romans. I think that's quite stupid because it's so much time, so many years ago. It's so different. I mean, yeah, geographically we live in the same place, but there must be some DNA, but it's so spread all over the continent. So it wouldn't make very much sense.
But wait a second, Italians are not famous for traveling a lot, right?
Yeah, but no.
I mean the next biggest
I'm talking of
community
the Romans.
of Italians is probably in America, isn't it? The immigrants.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh, Argentina.
Really? Argentina?
Oh, 50% of the Argentinians are actually have Italian ancestry. Actually,
What?
a lot of Argentinians have
What?
an Italian passport. Because in Italy, we, like in many other European countries, you pass on citizenship by being born to an Italian citizen. And so that's why today a lot of Argentinians have also an Italian passport.
Well, yeah, I mean, Probably because the Argentinians are they the only South Americans who look European?
No, Chileans look quite a European.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
They do look more like Peruvians, don't
No,
they?
no, definitely not.
Really?
Definitely.
Alright.
I met 2 Chilean people a few years ago.
Alright.
I was kind of like you, expecting to see more of a
I'm
Native American.
because I'm just basing my guess because of family friend of ours who married a Chilean guy, and he looks like
a Native
a
American.
little bit puffy face, like eyes,
Yeah.
this dark hair. So yeah,
I guess there's
looks like a Peruvian or some sort.
There are Native American communities all over South
Mhm.
America, but I think.
Oh, I thought Argentina was full of former Nazis. That's what I was thinking.
Could be. I don't know.
Because that was a famous place for them to go to
I
exile,
don't know.
as far as I remember.
But they're getting back to Argentina. These 2 Chilean people whom I met a few years ago, they told me a joke about like what they kind of a joke that they make in South American countries.
Yep.
And it is, what's the poorest European country?
Argentina?
Yeah. Because they kind of have this attitude like they're Europeans. Yeah. I found it funny back then.
Well, yeah, understandable. Have you been to Argentina?
No, never moved any western than.
Actually, the Argentina was mentioned in our discussion with Alex as well, simply because we were talking about the difference in culture, and somehow or another we started talking about. Oh, he was mentioning that you wouldn't be able to sometimes differentiate the prostitutes from regular women simply because of the way they dress.
In Argentina?
No, in his country.
Okay.
So I was we talked about that a little bit, and then afterwards I told them what I had heard on an audiobook, that they made the comparison regarding Japan and Argentina, where in Japan they are really timid, that the men are timid, and they don't really go up to women and flirt, and whereas in Argentina they almost harass women.
Mhm.
So just to make those 2 extremes. So yeah, that was the case where we discussed Argentina, but they are really somehow or another aggressive flirters.
Yeah. Well. What were we saying about? But how did we get to this point?
I blame it on Mario, man. I blame it on Super Mario.
Well,
Somehow or another, that plumber guy, that Italian American plumber, led us to Argentina.
Through Japan
Yeah.
twice. Because we mentioned Nintendo. Did you ever play Pokemon?
Play?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched the
Well,
series.
you can also play the game. I mean, it was born as a game.
No, never.
Oh.
Yeah, well, of course, I suppose for every popular TV show you have some games.
No, but Pokemon was born as a game.
Oh, really?
Then it was made a TV show.
I just know that it was the abbreviation for Pocket Monster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the game.
Oh, all right.
You should play it. Well, you can do that as a game streaming. You play the because the first Pokemon game, I guess it dates back late 90s.
Yeah.
You can do some, I don't know, Throwback Friday where you play old video games. So you can also.
How fun would that be?
It's
fun.
You can give it a try. You can.
Well, sure. I mean, it depends on the situation, I suppose, and on the game. But if I would ask you our old game you enjoyed, would you even
personally,
consider?
I wouldn't really enjoy watching a game streaming. So I don't see why. I mean,
here's the thing: if you are Italian and you say that Italians like football,
yeah,
technically it's somewhat or another way of just looking at other people play a game.
Oh, I see your point.
It's just that the generational shift hasn't occurred yet in a way that probably children in Italy are watching streaming games. Probably. So they will grow up and they will watch football and streaming games. Whereas now it's just divided. All the old ones look at football and the new ones look at football and games.
But okay, in that case, watching old games wouldn't be like saying watching old football games, because the game is still the same. What you would like to see in old game streaming would be looking how game were back then.
Yeah, it's just a retro look at
Why
things.
wouldn't that be? I mean, we have retro anything. Why wouldn't that be a thing? To do some retro gaming.
Well, of course you could do that. Of course.
Or you can kind of comment.
It's just that I'm thinking of the actual execution of it. I mean, if you would like to, let's say, play, I don't know. Well, probably you have some simulators, probably some virtual devices.
Pokemon was a game for.
No, I'm just
Game
thinking.
Boy.
I'm just thinking about because I remember at one point I wanted to play on a PSP, a PlayStation 1 game, and I had really trouble finding the right emulators.
Yeah.
So my guess would be that it might be even more complicated when it comes to PC. That let's say you want to play a Nintendo game.
No, definitely not. I mean, I remember.
You need to find the right emulator, and
there
then
are several
there should be tons. Sure.
I remember I was like less of a teenager, and I used to download emulators of Game Boy Advance on PCs and finding Game Boy Advance games. Quite easy. If it was easy back then, it must be super easy today.
Yeah, well, I suppose so.
So yeah, that could be an idea if you like it, to do some retro gaming. And at the same time, you can also comment on how games were different, and for you it would also be the first time you played those games. So people looking at you.
I'm not sure whether or not I haven't played any old school games.
No, yeah, sure. I'm thinking about Pokemon.
Well, Pokemon does for sure. Yeah, I didn't even think of it as a game. I just knew that, yeah, of course they made several games just because it was popular as a TV show.
Yeah, I'm not saying you should play, Pong, because it doesn't make any sense.
Actually, that was the one I was always thinking that when you talked about all games, I was just thinking.
How would you do a streaming of that?
Boop, 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 boop.
And you leave it in the background as a kind of soothing noise. Yeah, that could also be a thing. Or you can also play, what's it?
But for that, we definitely need the audio to be some other form, because then we would need to be actually looking at a screen almost side by side, and then without a headset, it's probably impossible. You need to have your hands free, and still have the audio, because the audio is just a pain in the behind
the back.
Yeah, because really, when
you do self-censorship, does it?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, not really.
No, I was wondering if you can actually swear.
Sure.
So you can
YouTube doesn't have any
policy on swear words.
Yeah. I would have said ass, but it just doesn't seem that cunning to say ass, because you hear that so often.
So you want to be?
It just loses its.
I was just wondering.
Connotation. Yeah. Because I don't know about you if you look at any podcasts, but I look at for instance a Joe Rogan podcast, and man, that dude swears every second sentence, right? So it seems to me that at least when it comes to the American entertainment world, it seems to me there's just too much swearing, in a sense that swearing isn't any more swearing.
Yeah,
It's just the common language.
Just any other word.
Common vocabulary.
Actually, so I don't look at podcasts, because actually when you said podcast, I thought of I listened to podcast. I wasn't expecting.
So what kind of podcast do you listen to?
What I do now, I listen to podcasts in Chinese and in German, because that's the language I'm trying.
Dude.
I'm trying to kind of work
Chinese podcasts.
Yeah, but especially made for people who are trying to learn. So
So it's for learning the language.
yeah. So it's
essentially
kind of, they're
as
spoken slowly.
a lesson.
Yeah.
Ah.
There's this one that
So
I
why
like.
do you call it a podcast then? Then it's just a lesson. It's just the audio lesson.
Yeah, but they call it the podcast. I don't know.
They do
Yeah.
call it a podcast?
Yeah.
Well, does it have a dialogue?
Yeah. It's often two people who kind of read a story and then they kind of discuss
All right,
it.
so it's
maybe our friends didn't understand
it's a
this
topical
word.
podcast then in sorts, yeah. Because I know that they have some types of podcasts, for instance, for history. They make history podcasts.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right, I get it.
Yeah, and that's
a
very
learning
nice because they
podcast.
read a story and then they.
So what's it
normally-
called then? Let's just plug them.
I guess it's called Chinese for Learners.
Chinese podcast.
Wait, I'll look it up. Oh, look, I have it here. I'm trying to make best use of this thing. So where is it? Maybe it's here.
So about the link, when we started the podcast, I had actually talked to.
Yeah, it's called Learning Chinese Through Stories.
Wow, sounds very Asian, to put it that way.
Yeah, it's very literal. It's exactly what it is.
Learning Chinese through stories. Chinese learning, yeah. No. Learning Chinese through stories. Man, that's a long domain. How did you find that?
I've received comments on the podcast.
Oh,
Yeah, like you said.
I hope
things.
the audio is fairly
Yeah,
sufficient.
apparently it was perfectly understandable. So yeah.
very good.
And
So now they have.
I've received a comment like saying, "It's not true that Swiss people speak better languages." But yeah, and
What?
also like, don't comment on Yugoslavia. It might be risky.
All right. So it's for a while then. Then she started watching it for half an hour
she's
at
been
least.
watching it for. Now she went to bed.
So she's the only. Oh no, yeah, right. We have two watchers.
Oh, so now there were three because she just said she's going to bed.
Hmm.
I'll text her. Yeah. So we had three for a moment.
I'm not sure why it shows that weird quality. Maybe something happened with the internet. See,
So I wonder who the other people are.
the quality some was distorted.
Oh.
Oh, now it's back again. Whatever.
Wow, you seem a different person in the
Well, it's just a different angle.
Oh, it's really different though. Wow. Oh, that's
I'm a chameleon.
Oh, that's Shanghai. I've lived there for a year.
So how did you find it? How did you? Yeah, the podcast.
This search engine on it's an app.
Wow.
In the App Store. And
How do you feel about languages in general? Don't you feel that most of the languages in the world should just get over it and switch to English?
no, because I'm biased because I actually like languages, so I would like to. I mean, I personally enjoy it.
But think about
But if I have to
progress.
If I have to be objective, yeah, of course you have to admit that that the fact that there exist several languages is a hindrance to communication and everything. And the fact that we're going towards a common language is good. But the fact that we go towards a common language doesn't mean that we have to give up our own languages. You can definitely manage at least two languages. So you can have one for your, like, to kind of remember yourself of your past and culture and who you are, and another one to communicate with the others.
Do you really identify with language?
Oh, if you ask me, is Italian a special place? Like if I speak several languages, does your native language is a special place? Definitely yes. My soul, my heart, my mind is in Italian. Like my girlfriend can speak Italian very well, and I have to say it's different when we speak Italian than when we do French, for example, when there are other people. My perception of her is different, and that's also why I'd like to improve my German to a point to which I can understand Swiss German, because I know that letting her speak her language to me and maybe hearing me speak her language would mean something extra. I think I think it really defines who you are and
The language.
your perception of the world, definitely.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Of what's around you. I'm pretty sure that if you suddenly if you're in a completely estranged place and you suddenly hear a word in your native language, it goes straight to your heart. I mean,
it's just training. Come on, it's just training.
No, not just you're able to detect it, but also kind of rings a bell more. I mean, if you hear an English word or in a language that you understand, it's going to ring a bell in your head. But if it's in your own language, or at least to me, it goes deeper inside. I mean, like they say,
I definitely understand your point.
Yeah.
It's just that do they really think that has some really emotional attitude towards it? It's just maybe the fact that you are generally more in tune with your native language, and that's it. In the sense that you
I
are
think it does affect. It does
well
affect
acquainted
you.
with it.
I'm well acquainted with English, and still I don't feel.
Yeah, but you are better acquainted with your native language.
Definitely so. But then again, can you get to a point in which you're acquainted in a language at the same level you're in your native language?
You mean if I had the proficiency of another language as my native?
Yeah.
See, there's the thing. Nobody I know in Latvia speaks Latvian well.
What do you mean?
Latvian is a complicated language.
I guess.
So sort of. So even though people can communicate, it really depends on the person how well they do it. So nobody really pays attention to actually how Latvian should be spoken.
Yeah, but that's the case for every other language. I mean, it's like I also know a lot of Italians who can speak poor Italian, but very poor.
Oh well, then yeah.
Still, it's
but
not.
See,
that,
but see, that's the thing.
It's not that what makes it your native language. It's not the fact that you speak it flawlessly that makes it your native language. It's just No.
What I meant is that you use the words of the native language, but you express it as, let's say, a Russian would do. You just translate the words in this language, but you make the syntax, you make the whole point as you would do in another language. Simply because your thought process is divided between Latvian, Russian, and maybe something or another.
It means that Russian has a major place in your head. That you do speak
the Russian culture, yes, because of the Soviet times, yes.
But then for these, I think for these people who kind of have a stronger Russian is because they belong to a Russian minority who speaks Russian.
No, man. We have the everyday vocabulary of Latvian people is totally influenced by Russian manners. So I'm not saying it's good or bad.
English is like that.
I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just that if you talk about a Latvian identity, it would be difficult to actually have a consistent argument just because there's no real identity attached to it. People use the vocabulary of the Latvian language, but the thought process, the expression they use, even the mannerisms are attached from other languages.
I mean, English is like that. English is
in what way?
Technically a Germanic language, but the syntax and the grammar and the vocabulary has been so influenced from French that today's English is in some way closer to French than it is to German.
Sure.
Although it's a pretty Germanic language.
Yeah, but still, I mean, Great Britain and America ruled out the possibility that you can actually complicate things with the English language. I mean, if you speak English, you speak pretty much the same English all over.
I wouldn't be so sure.
Well, I mean, of course, it depends on your vocabulary in a sense.
Vocabulary, way of speaking, accent, and everything. I mean, from one side of the word to the other, it changes a lot.
you definitely can get some of that. That's for sure. But when it comes to, let's say, international people, not really seeing there any
but
problems.
what you were saying is like Latvian is often spoken, and it has been important, not only vocabulary but also syntax and patterns and mannerisms from another language. And so was the case for English, but I don't see that English is, or that English speaker people are less attached to English language just because it's important. It was highly influenced by another.
Yeah,
language.
but think of it this way. English is the official language of several countries.
Yeah.
So why would they attach their identity to a language that is spoken in different countries? It's not really attached to the language.
But then it's something. It's something. I'm not saying that I'm attached to a nation because that's the language that is spoken there. I'm just saying I'm attached to a language. When I hear Italian spoken by a Swiss, I know it's a different national, but it's still the same language, and I feel more. I perceive it in a different way than I do other languages.
It's just a sentiment.
Yeah, but to the language, not to the country. It's nothing to do with the country.
Yeah, but I understood that you consider the language as the identity that you attach you to.
Yeah, but my identity as an Italian speaker, not as an Italian national.
Yeah, but still, you attach the language for an identity, a perception of yourself, or
Yeah. But it has nothing
and
to do
that's
with.
And that's what I told you about. Let's say if I hear Latvian in, let's say, a foreign country, I wouldn't necessarily attach an identity to it personally, simply because most of the time people don't speak as Latvian should be spoken. They speak, they use the words of the Latvian language, but many times their thought process is influenced by.
But what do they
other...
teach in school? Like, what language are you taught at school?
Well, you can say that the Latvian language is taught in school. It's just that if you are a small country and your past has been attached to a big country, and your contemporary issues are related to other countries, it's just that your sort of national idiosyncrasies relating to your language disappear. You still have the vocabulary, but you don't have the real content of the identity in it, because it probably was a time in history when Latvian meant something as an identity. Mm-hmm. But nowadays I would just call it a language that is spoken, but without any real identity to it. I mean, you can find several mentalities of people and still speaking the same language, right? But since that is the case, the language is differently spoken.
I see.
It's just that the words are the same from the same language.
I see, but
when it comes to language being a vehicle for communicating, then the communication source is rather your attitude, your mentality, your experiences, everything that comes together, and language is just the communication vehicle. So when you use the communication vehicle, it really depends on, what is your identity, what is your mentality, what is your attitude. And if that is not the same for another Latvian, simply because his influences are from another country and mine are from another, we speak the same language, but we use the language, the vehicle, differently, so we communicate differently.
I see your point, but that doesn't apply not to the case of Italian, I'd say, because
Italy hasn't been conquered, really, right?
No, never, as far as I know.
Well, come on, probably sometime in history. Wasn't the Byzantine Empire on your part of the Mediterranean? I think so. Wasn't it the case that the Roman Empire collapsed, then the Turkish region started growing and grew over to your place as well?
I guess only there was some
I think so.
influence in Sicily. But maybe in some southern part, but not that much.
I mean, at least for the past 400 years, you didn't have any.
The thing is that Italy as a country exists only since 1861, so it's very recent. And before that, you had several
City-states, right?
city-states. And then, of course, you had the Vatican, which was larger back then. But they kind of share the culture, which is the same culture that is in the southern part of Switzerland. But there again, this is a different story. This is more of political connotations or a nationalism behind it.
But also social.
Yeah, but what I'm referring to when I say that I attach a certain... Okay.
No, I do get your point. I mean, don't get me wrong.
You
feel some certain way when you hear your native language.
I do feel a different way because I feel that inside my mind, things are in Italian, just defined in that language, and Italian as a language is rather strong. It is not influenced. So
the rhetorical question from my part would be: would it be the same if Italy had, let's say, 2 or 3 official languages, and you would have grown up with 3 languages as your native language?
I mean, Italy has areas in which other languages are spoken.
For sure.
Like, there's a German-speaking minority at the border with Austria. There's a Slovenian minority. There's a small French-speaking minority.
Because it would be interesting to hear some... what are the countries in Europe, Belgium and Switzerland, that have multi-language territories?
I cannot really talk about Belgium, but about Switzerland, they will see, as far as I can understand, because I haven't lived in Switzerland that long, but Swiss people, they have different traits when it comes to culture. If you can definitely see there are different linguistic regions and different cultural regions. I mean, the German-speaking Swiss have more of a German. They're very different from the Germans, but you can tell they have a Germanic culture. And
but do they have do the Swiss people in general have a solidarity between them?
Yeah. If you ask them...
So it's not based on language then?
In that case, no. But what I have to say, when it comes to just chatting or making friends, I often see in schools, like at universities, French speakers tend to sit together independent on the fact that they're Swiss or French. And same goes for Italian speakers, and same goes for German speakers very often. They tend to group up. But then why is Switzerland a nation? Why aren't this area attached to just the other countries? Because they have a wholly different way of thinking the world and thinking politics. And in that case, when it comes to discussing politics and the way things should be managed and the way a country should be run, they tend to agree. And the way they think of political participation is very different from the way it is in France or in Italy or in Germany.
So what would happen if there were no borders? Literally no country borders. It's just, you have different languages but no fixed borders anymore.
Like where where do you mean?
Well, in a way that, for instance, now you have Italian speaking people, not just in Italy, for instance. You have German speaking people, not just in Germany, but also in different countries. What would happen if there were no countries? Let's say you wouldn't be able to pick on a map, to pinpoint on a map where the end of Germany is, where the start of Switzerland is, where the end where the start of Italy is. It was just, all right, this is the subcontinent of Europe, and you have...
But that's what it is. If you don't have borders...
No. What I mean by that, if you don't have a Switzerland as a country, would the solidarity be still relating to a particular region? Because economically you are associated with probably the whole world in a way, but when it comes to socially, you are more attached, more or less, to those native to your tongue.
No, because that's not the... I mean, that's the narrative when it comes to nation building. You tend to believe... it was quite a thing in the 19th century one state, one nation, one language, but it's not definitely the case of Switzerland. And these people, I mean, the nation was built just because these people shared certain common elements, although they spoke different languages. The word was not born with borders.
Actually, no.
People
When was Switzerland founded?
In 1291, the first three cantons grouped together, I think, and then the kind of the modern day Switzerland, I guess that dates back 19th century. Yeah, I think I'm not.
Because it somehow or another, it seems to me that the concept of fixed borders was only practical, or there was a practical need for fixed borders only when you had the industrial revolution enabling people to actually worry about silly things. Because it seems to me let's say at the times of, I don't know, 17th century, I suppose you could have traveled a lot easier than you can nowadays, simply because you probably didn't have any border guards in the traditional sense. Because there was no fixed border in a way. You had some municipalities.
I guess
and
the only thing you cared about.
You had some
back
kingdoms
then,
or whatever.
Yeah,
but
I guess the only thing you cared about back then was like, okay, this is my land. I'm the only one who can farm on these lands. That's the only thing that I care about.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that. I guess the whole thing with the border started with people when people started coming in to kind of conquer the land. So I kind of pushed them back by setting literal borders.
Because usually, I think it was the case that they just made up the regional divisions by some geographical. Let's say, oh, there goes the river, so this side of the river is this place, that side of the river is another place, something like that.
Yeah, but in some cases, it still is like that.
Probably.
Yeah, some regions, some countries.
Well, but what I mean by that is just the language is definitely older than the territory of a country.
Definitely.
Right. So it means that if you have a sentiment to a certain language, it might not be attached to any territory, but actually just the culture that is attached to it.
But the culture is not the same as politics. Like.
But why would you involve politics? Politics is just decision making.
Yeah, but let me give you this example. People in Ticino, so this Italian-speaking part of Switzerland, in their constitution, because they have cantonal constitutions, it says that that they are the representatives of they are what's the word, I guess, the bringer of the Italian culture in Switzerland. And that's a culture that existed before the country of Italy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you ask them, would you ever want to be associated for any other reason to Italy, to the country of Italy?
To the territory of Italy.
They would never say yes.
Yeah, but that's the territory
that wouldn't be
of Italy,
like that. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's the sports team mentality.
But also because they are attached to another way of thinking.
That's the sports team mentality.
Living.
But that's the sports team mentality. Oh, it's not my team. It's not my team.
But but before that, why it's not your team? Because
we chant another song. We have a different flag.
We have a different flag.
Yeah, and we chant another song. It's not my team, right? But technically, you are on the same team.
But before team even existed, they didn't want to be associated with this team. These teams didn't even exist.
Yeah, because there was no concept of team. They grouped up
together with other people. They didn't group together with the people who spoke the same language. They grouped together with people who spoke a different language because they found something. They found that they were.
I think that's a risky premise.
But that's what it is.
No. Look, there might be some circumstances where they actually live together and work together, but to say that it would be somehow or another naturally fitting for a person who belongs to a certain ethnical group to just they just moved on their own, went to a wholly different culture and just tried to mingle
But
with
that's what
them.
happened.
Yeah,
Or at least in the
I'm,
case of Switzerland.
what I'm saying is there might be some other factors involved.
Yeah, definitely. So what I want to say is it happened with these people. They wanted to be like centuries ago, they wanted to be associated with other people who spoke a different language. But there again, their language is the same as this other team, and that existed before. And the culture itself existed before the two countries ever existed.
So it seems like you guys were involved in making Switzerland, the Romans and also the Germanic tribes.
But the Romans were everywhere. Where
I'm
did they
not
go?
sure if the Romans went to the polar ice cap.
Not that far, but in Europe they were almost. Can you look it up? The Roman Empire. Oh, not the Holy Roman Empire. Sorry. Just look for Rome. Oh, Roman Empire. There. There to the left. Left there. Let's see.
So at the height.
There. Well, not that. Oh, I thought more. Sorry. At its greatest extent. Okay, it looks like they were more in other continent than
They liked the sun.
Yeah.
Because these are warm climates,
they
except
were in
maybe England. Well, but England has a warm climate in a sense,
I was in
or a mild climate, but they don't have that much of a Scandinavian or Northern Europe climate. I think it's because of the Gulf Stream.
I don't know. I was in Ireland before coming here, so I was there at like beginning of this week.
Yeah.
And it was really cold. Oh, it's not like winter cold, but in Geneva it was like 30 degrees, and in Limerick, where I was, so on the Atlantic side of Ireland, it was very chilly, like 10 degrees, 15 degrees. I mean, I wasn't expecting that. So
well, sure, but I think that's almost the average temperature for them. In a way.
So that's why I wouldn't talk of a mild. Maybe mild, but not nice weather.
Well, nice weather. England is definitely not known, or the UK for nice weather.
The weather here was much better than what I found a few days ago in Ireland. Weather here was very nice. I gotta be honest. I was expecting to find it a little bit more cold. What's the weather like in winter?
Cold.
Very cold.
Depends on the year, but
Like what on average?
Well, if you would
if
you would ask me the average for a 5-year period, for instance, that minus 15 degrees.
Wow, that's very cold.
Well, I mean, we had at least a couple of years ago minus 30 degrees, so not that. But sometimes it's a mild winter. Sometimes you just get minus 10 degrees, perhaps. It just varies.
Wow. I cannot think of how it would be like the lowest temperature I've been.
Well, wait a second, but you in Italy, you have the mountains to ski on, right?
Yeah, but I'm not from the mountains. I'm from the south and the sea.
All
so
right.
it's but I guess that even in the mountains it doesn't get that cold. Or I should look it up, but wow, I would be very surprised to know that there's a place in Italy where you have minus 30. Maybe there's one place like on top of
might
Mont
be.
Blanc, but everywhere else I'm pretty sure. Like where I'm from, it's already rare to have 0 in winter.
Well,
in Milan it gets very
that's
often.
definitely not the case in Latvia for sure. So, but you definitely have that. You have the nice weather for, let's say, for a human being in general. I mean, I personally don't get the logic why we are even here. In a sense, well, what was the historical reasoning why we come from warmer climate to a colder one and stay? I don't get that. I understand that we can come here at one point, but once we figure out, damn, it gets cold. Now we need to get back, right? So yeah, I don't get that. So that's the reason why I would like to have an explanation which involves some aliens, just because that will make some sense. Yeah, we were just brought here. All right. We didn't make that stupid decision by ourselves. Then somebody took us here, and that's it. And told, yeah, there's nothing beyond the horizon. Don't go there. That's it.
I just wonder. I mean, because
and showed us how to make fires, and that's it.
Yeah, but if it's cold, I mean, if it's hard to be in the cold weather now, imagine what it was 1,000 years ago.
Well, look,
when they were already living here.
Well, look. That's the thing. Even though climatologists probably wouldn't be so pessimistic, but my guess would be that the knowledge about the past climate, especially in the millennia before nowadays, is probably definitely not the
accurate.
Yeah, the most accurate that you could imagine. So my guess would be that there was probably some natural reasoning for coming here, being here, but there was no logical reasoning for staying here once it's cold. So
yeah, but the thing is that maybe you cannot go back because now there's someone else there and you can't go.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing about traditions. Do you break traditions if you consider them to be nonsensical, right? And then it comes back to those actually identity questions, whether or not you actually preserve the tradition just because it is a part of your perceived identity.
Yeah, but sometimes
have you heard of that? I don't know if that's true or not, but I've just heard it a lot of times being told, and it seems reasonable to believe that something like that had happened. That they made an experiment where they put, well, for easiness sake, let's just say 5 monkeys, but I've heard 10 monkeys, right? But say 5 monkeys. They put 5 monkeys in the room, put a big tree in the top, and put bananas on the top. Well, once the monkeys see the bananas, they won't go up. Once they are at some certain point, there is some electric shock device there, and it just shocks the monkeys. So once they want to get the bananas, they get shocked, they come down. So all right, everybody tries, everybody gets shocked, nobody tries anymore. Then they start taking one monkey out and putting another monkey in. And they're actually switching off the electric device. So the new monkey comes in, sees the bananas, goes up there. The 4 rest of the monkeys just pull them down. so that 5th one doesn't even get to near the bananas just because the 4 ones are essentially protecting him, not knowing that the electric device is even turned off. So they pull him down. All right, the 5th new monkey, he even doesn't try anymore. So they switch another monkey now. Now the new monkey wants to know. So the rest of the 4 monkeys pull him down.
End, they kind of never go.
So after a while, every monkey from the starting group is exchanged by another. Nobody of the new ones has ever even experienced the shock, but they still continue to pull each other down just because everybody did that.
Yeah.
And that's I don't know about this one, whether or not it really occurred that way, but I know about the Pavlovian dogs where they shocked those if they wanted to jump out of some box or whatever. So they every time they wanted to jump out, they shocked them. So they started just laying flat. They introduced a new dog. That dog jumped out easily in front of the old one, but the old one didn't even try anymore. Simply because, all right, why bother, right? So
I
understand
the rhetoric,
part of tradition.
I understand the rhetoric behind it. Like, you keep on doing something although it doesn't make any sense anymore.
Just because your grandmother did it in a way, yeah.
But you can also use the same logic to prove the exact opposite point. Like saying, you see, they continue doing it even though they don't know, and they do it right because there is something they don't know about, but they do it and they are safe. That's a
bold statement, my friend.
But imagine you didn't turn off the electricity.
Well, look,
you would be able to say, okay, dude, they are not doing it just by respecting their traditions. They are saving their own lives.
Yeah, but there's no real tradition when it comes to electricity. I mean, we are talking about a 100-year span.
Yeah, okay, fine, but that's
culturally.
that's an exemplifying case.
Yeah, but you mean safety issues. I'm talking about culture, in the sense that you do something just because you have been indoctrinated in something. So.
But then what you want to prove is like is it useless
Well, no, it's just
useful to continue?
No, it's just a reflection. It's just a reflective thought, in the sense that whether or not you have actually a feedback mechanism established in a society
that,
for
but
culture.
Is it good or bad? That's the point.
It's most of the time probably it's probably most of the time a disservice to progress. Because people are attached to some.
Of progress.
Yeah, because people are mostly attached to old things, just because they don't really bother with new things.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Well, I'm not saying that progress doesn't happen. It's just that what influences a person's behavior is more than just rational thought. Right, many times it's just the culture behind it, and when we speak about language, all I can see is Latvian, for instance. It's a difficult language. It has influences from Russian, German, French, probably some Swedish and Polish in between as well, probably. And most of the time when you really look at an established language like the old Roman languages, I suppose that has more meaning in general. But when it comes to, let's say, how old is Italian?
Officially, it exists like
because it was the time that in that region Latin was spoken, right?
No, actually Latin, like we studied at school, was only spoken before or just around the year 0.
But isn't by the way, Italian based on Latin?
Oh yeah, definitely. Actually, if you have a good education, you can understand quite a bit of Latin just by knowing Italian.
It's not the case with other languages, is it? I mean, you could learn
less
French.
And less.
You could learn French, but you wouldn't be able to really understand Latin,
it would be
right?
tougher. And same goes for Spanish, and much more, even more for Romanian, because they kind of get farther to where it geographically was.
Okay.
But I guess the language. Well, when you study literature at school, in Italy, you kind of start with poems from the late
15th, 16th century?
No, 13th century.
Really?
13th century, yeah. So you start from the 13th century, and that's an Italian that's understandable if you have a very high education.
All right.
Because and it's not very easy to understand, but you can see the language is there. It's definitely Italian.
Yep.
Before that, you would speak of Vulgar Latin. Vulgar Latin, the 12th century is the point where you switch from a non-understandable Italian to an understandable Italian, and so that's where you speak of Italian. And before that, you speak of late Latin.
So what's the Italian then? 16th century?
No, 13th century is Italian. It's not Italian because you speak of Florence dialect, Florence language, but that's what it is.
So you mean 13th century poem was written in vulgar?
No, in Italian. Vulgar is high. Italian and not Latin.
Uh-huh.
And right before that, like the Middle Ages, if you read Saint Augustine, for example, he would write in late Latin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, more of a classical structure, but a Latin that it's not yet Italian, and you cannot understand it.
All right.
You only understand it if you've studied Latin.
All right, I get it.
But from the 13th century on, it's Italian. You understand it if you speak Italian well. It's very different. I would never speak like that, but it's the language is there. I assume if you read poems or poetry, just prose poetry, prose or in Latvian from the 15th century, you would understand it. Although you would say, okay, I would never talk like that, but that's the same language.
Actually, we talked with Alex about this as well today. But yeah, I told him, well, we can trace our history when it comes to the language to the 16th century. But yeah, those were mostly based on local dialects. And so nobody really had any clue about the Latvian language in general. But you can see the influences that shaped the Latvian language. But the Latvian language in general was shaped in the 18th century.
Okay.
So and that was still some difficult stuff to read, just because the written language was influenced by German, because the German
I guess that
because the Germans applied their typewriting to our phonetics. So Latvians spoke one word, and the Germans just wrote it down in German letters. So that was the official wording for Latvian words, and then it changed only in the end of 19th century and start of 20th century.
Okay.
So
well,
it's,
I guess it's different from, like, countries that have a long tradition in literature. Like, for example, the case, why is Italian spoken all over the country, like not just in Florence? Because Florence had it was that, it was where the Renaissance was born, and so the culture spread very quickly, and people kind of learned the language to write and read poems and stuff. Same goes for French and German, and because it's countries that have a long tradition in literature, so the language has been kind of embedded in writing for a longer time, so it has I mean, it's become standardized at an earlier moment in time. I mean, people in 500 years from now are going to be able to say, okay, Latvian was already that language back in the 20th century.
Well, I see your point, but then again, that's the point I made regarding the identity. Simply because you have a longer history, in a way.
But it's not about the history. It's about the in this case, it's really about
the sentiment.
The literature, and I mean, I happen to speak Italian, although I'm not from Florence, because of the fact that they wrote good poems, and people in, like, over here, they thought, hey, okay, that's fine. Let's also write in that same language, and that's why it became. Because it had an authority as a language, because it was a written language, it was a language of poetry and stuff. So it kind of, people learned and wanted to acquire it, and that's it. Probably.
So yeah, what did we leave out? I think music.
Music.
From the stuff we wrote in the description, I think music was the last one. So, well, Italian has influenced music as well, hasn't it? With all the terminology.
Oh, if you speak of classical music, although sometimes it's funny because some of these words are just normal words, some others are no longer really used. But music, just thinking about the music.
Actually, what I wanted to ask you, since you're a bistro is an Italian word, right?
Say it again?
A bistro.
No, it's French.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Bistro, like you mean a restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's French.
Oh, I thought it was Italian.
I mean, you spell it with a T at the end, and
Bistro.
T. In French, it's spelled O-T.
No, I mean without.
Yeah,
don't you have don't Italians have bistros?
Yeah, but we would use the French word.
So that comes from French?
It is French.
Ah. Well, because I've heard that it was related to the Russian language. Simply because bistro means fast in Russian.
Oh, could be. I've always thought it's French. Can you look it up, please?
And I've heard that it was related to sort of Russian troops going into a territory and just demanding fast food. Let me just.
Well, French has quite a lot of words that come. Okay.
Bistrot, original Parisian incarnation.
Small restaurant. History. So, the basement kitchen. Provision apartment. Etymology. Where derived from? The Russian bistro. You're right. Quickly. It ended in the French language during the Battle of Paris. Russian yeah. But modern day word bistro is from French.
Look at that.
With a T.
All right, so bistro is from France.
French. And
Got it.
and yeah. And also because if it were Italian, you would have an accent on the O.
What?
If it were Italian, if the word were Italian, you would have an accent on the O at the end, because otherwise we would pronounce it bistro.
And then you would pronounce it bistro?
Yeah. In that case, if you have an accent, I mean, otherwise I wouldn't be able to say it's bistro.
Interesting. All right.
I mean, I guess I'm pretty sure you have the same thing in Latvian.
What do you mean?
You also have a lot of diacritics that you put on or under letters to modify pronunciation, right?
Sure.
Like you have the long line. What is it for?
To make it longer.
Yeah, then it's the same thing.
But it seems to me that you would just emphasize the bistro.
Yeah, but when you emphasize a vowel, you just make it longer.
Sort of. But we even have some sort of, what's it called? I'm not sure. Vowels, I suppose. That even though they don't have that in a particular word, they will still be spoken that way.
Yeah, that's also in Italian.
And it's just some idiosyncrasy regarding the language.
In Italian, we have that. I mean, you have to know where it has to be long and where it has to be short.
It's not obvious.
But in some cases, like the one when the one that has to be long is the final one, then you have to put the accent. Otherwise, in other cases, you can look it up on the dictionary and see the pronunciation.
Yeah. So, right, music. I don't know any musical acts from Italy, I guess. I don't know.
Not even classical opera music?
Oh, well, no, I mean contemporary music.
Contemporary
music. Because the Italians don't really rule the pop charts, right?
No,
I mean, the Swedish, the Dutch, the French, they are really...
I cannot name a Dutch or a Swedish
Well, I mean,
singer.
come on, you have lots of DJs from there coming, producing music for the top 40.
Oh, yeah, but in that case, I wouldn't really know.
Well, I mean, yeah, popular music would be the first thing to look at, and then of course you can see
Those
some
are rock music.
segments.
I mean, if I think of,
I'm just trying literally to think of one musical actor out of Italy. I probably cannot name one.
I guess it really depends on the kind of music you listen to. I kind of know some people know some.
Well, still, I mean, you sometimes, let's say, I'm not the biggest fan of ABBA, but still I know ABBA.
Yeah, sure.
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I don't know.
It's really difficult. So what would you say? What is your most commercially successful musical act of Italy?
I guess there are a lot. Well, a lot of Italian singers are famous in South America, and in Spain, or sometimes in France, such as like Eros Ramazzotti or.
Oh right, that I do know.
Or
right,
Laura Pausini or Andrea Bocelli or.
Right, and isn't Bocelli? Isn't he almost like an opera singer?
He is, but he does a lot of what they call pop opera. I mean, he also sings classical, and it's actually a very good one.
Because Eros Ramazzotti, I've heard only because in Germany he's somewhat known.
Yeah, it's very known in Germany.
Yeah.
But I wonder if it's also because there's a large minority, like not the minority, but an immigrant group.
In Germany?
From Italy.
Really?
Yeah, there are. Not that many, but there are.
Well, from that logic, you would need to have some popular Turkish musical acts in a way, but
true.
I'm not sure.
True.
Well, probably you have some rappers.
But probably it's easier.
Turkish descent.
But it's probably easier to make the Germans like Italian music because it's more. It's like closer to what they kind of expect from music than you do with Turkish music, because it's probably the structures are quite different, so they might not kind of really meet the ear of a German.
Here's the thing: I always thought about Italians as the intermediary between the East and the West, in a way.
Like what?
Well, I mean, you are Mediterranean, but still you are European, and yet you are pretty close when it comes to, I mean, throughout history with ties to the East, to the Eastern countries, to the Middle East, I suppose.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, technically the trade went through Italy many hundreds of years, right?
Yeah, before the discovery of America. Yeah, actually, do you know the expression lingua franca, to express it, to call a language that is spoken by many people, is Italian, which, well, literally means free language. And it was an actual language. It was based on Italian, but it was a language that included words from all the countries in the Mediterranean, so that it was understandable for everybody. It's a sort of Esperanto back then. Although it was largely based on Italian, while Esperanto is largely based on Romance/Germanic languages.
I didn't even know that it was based on anything. I was just
Esperanto?
I was just thinking that it was just a made-up language.
No. It's largely based. I mean, the whole idea behind Esperanto is that it was supposed to be learned quickly by.
But who does it? Who learns it?
You would be surprised. I was shocked to see how many people learn it. I mean, it's
for what reason?
Because, I mean, it's easier than English.
But where would you apply it?
I mean, if you ask me what would be the best solution, everybody speaking English, like, not considering that a lot of people already speak English, but let's assume from the beginning, everybody speaking English or everybody speaking Esperanto.
Well,
I'd say Esperanto.
Yeah, because it's designed.
It's way easier.
Because it's designed.
Yeah.
So that's of course from when we start from zero. Yeah, definitely.
So.
But we don't start from zero.
But the thing is that I think, if you consider how many people today in Europe do not speak or even understand English, I think it would be enough to compensate. If you had all the ones that already speak English learn Esperanto and all the others as well, it would still cost less than having all the other learn just English. Because to become proficient in English, it takes quite a while, and you never do. Because English is a very tough language. It's very flexible. It really depends on. I mean, it's really hard to tell when it's correct and when it's not.
Yep.
And so I think to have everybody learn Esperanto instead of having just the ones that don't speak English learn English would cost less and takes less time. But you wouldn't do it because it's not a thing. It's not fashionable. I mean, there are a lot of...
It's not related to any culture.
Which puts us back to the topic we just had.
Mm-hmm.
But that would be also neutral, because if you say in Europe, should we all speak English? That would be unfair, because you would be living out a lot of cultures, and some people might say, hey, my language, I don't want it to be less privileged than English or than French or than German, because it's my culture, whatever you want. While Esperanto will be neutral.
Sports teams, man.
But this exists. It's a thing.
Yeah, that's the
and
weird
also,
human nature.
If you had English spoken, I mean, in that case, you would be unfairly given an advantage to a part of the population of the European Union.
What do you mean?
Because there's a population for which English is the native language. So you're giving them an advantage. If everybody in the parliament were to speak English, of course they would have an advantage when it comes to public speech or to be effective.
All right, but what would it mean for the end result when it comes to persuasion? I mean, not that much.
Yeah, but assume someone wants to do
we're not
research.
in those times anymore.
Assume you want to do some research on the how things work in the European Union, and then you find out everything is in English and you don't speak English. You cannot do research where someone who's from that country will be able to do it, and it has an unfair advantage.
Well, life is not fair for anybody.
Yeah.
You just make up your fairness.
Yeah, or you grant fairness by kind of paying a service of, I don't know, in this case, translation and interpreting to everybody.
Well, sure.
which
Sure.
would still cost less than having everybody learn English.
Look at that. Music took us only 1 minute.
Yeah, well, it was a
So
small.
all right, Eros Ramazzotti then.
Oh, I just wanted to say one thing. My favorite band is playing in Riga on the 21st, and I won't be able to attend because
So
I will be at the conference.
So what is the band?
The Foo Fighters.
Oh well, but all right. I thought you will be mentioning the an Italian band or whatever.
Oh, sorry. No. No. And I wonder what are the chances of meeting the band you want to, your idols in Riga. I mean, people from all the other side of the world. You meet them in Riga, and you still cannot attend.
I had actually 2 days ago. I think 2 days ago, a dude from the UK, and he came. I think specifically for the Foo Fighters, but he just in between made some trips. So
Okay.
we'll be making some trips around Latvia.
Okay.
But yeah, and he actually asked me whether or not I know somebody who will go attend Foo
I so
Foo
wanted to
Fighters.
go, but I can't.
Well, I mean, you probably can figure out if you really need
Yeah, the thing is that
mind over matter.
I asked my boss if I could, and he was like, "No, you can't, because you have to be there." And then now it's too late.
But who's your boss?
Well, on the one side is my supervisor, but he's also the person I do research assistance for.
All right.
So yeah.
So you don't have any
So
big
now it's-
leverage on him.
The thing is that now it's too late to make an excuse like I'm feeling sick. Can I go? Because he knows.
But did you tell him or did you?
Yeah, I asked him, would you mind if I kind of left the conference like at the mid of the day? And it was like, no, you have to be there because I need that. I need this and that. And
But
stuff.
isn't the conference recorded?
Yeah, but it's not really. I told you it's more of an annual meeting that we have to discuss things and
All
see
right,
how
right.
we
But
should
you,
do things.
are you a key person regarding certain things?
Apparently, I wouldn't say so, but apparently.
Because I would imagine that you will still be just sitting on your behind most of the time and just listening.
I agree,
So
but still,
it's just putting on the recording app on your telephone.
yeah.
And all right,
But
just speak fairly loud.
It might.
I'll listen to it after I'll get back from my coma from Foo Fighters.
Yeah, but then it might be like, yeah, I have to present this. Can you please make slides for me and stuff? And yeah,
Oh man, that's
it sucks.
yeah. You should avoid that
But
that
that's
situation.
life.
That's for sure.
That's life.
Man, I suppose you just need some, well, not necessarily blackmailing tactics, but still, you need some leverage
Yeah.
against those supervisors of yours.
Well, we'll see. I gave it up already anyway. But aren't you tired?
Well, I'll suppose 3 hours is fairly enough.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
I thought we would speak for 20 minutes, but then we had so many things to say.
Yeah, and still, we probably left so many things
Yeah,
unanswered.
we kind of had to cut the music.
But still, I mean, we covered the most basic ones. I mean, Super Mario was there, Japan was there, represented.
Pokemon
So
were there,
yeah,
retro gaming
it was
is
represented.
there.
So it seems pretty decent.
Just think of the retro gaming thing. I think it can be a thing.
Yeah. That's for sure. I was not sure about the emulators, but if you say that you had no problems whatsoever,
Definitely. So
yeah, then it's just a matter of research.
just play Pokemon Yellow or Pokemon Green or Pokemon Blue or Pokemon Red or Pokemon Green, which are the ones.
So wait a second. Are you saying that those games were before even the TV show?
You can look it up, but yes. Yes. I mean,
Pokemon Green
just look Pokemon. I say Red
or video game series?
video game series. All right.
Well, are you sure? Because
Yeah.
as part of the Pokemon media franchise, so the Pokemon Company, 95. Oh yeah, a pair of video games
You see
for
Pokemon
the
anime.
Game Boy.
Yeah.
For
and
Game
Pokemon
Boy.
Anime is 1997.
Yeah. Alright, so it's a Game Boy.
Yeah, it's a Game Boy game. But then you had Pokemon.
Damn. I think I remember how a Game Boy looked, and it was awful.
Yeah,
It was a little bit
red
better
and
than
green and
Tetris.
blue. Then you had yellow, gold, and silver. I guess I played,
Man.
but it's fun. It's actually a pretty fun game. You have to. I
It
mean,
was-
if you've ever played role-playing games, just Final Fantasy and those stuff, it kind of reminds of those games quite a bit.
I have played only strategic games, RPG, and yeah.
Well, but give it a try. No.
Man, this is just so it looks so ridiculous.
Well, you can look at the new ones.
Because they didn't probably move either,
They
right?
did like this. You can try the new ones. I guess the new ones. I mean, I stopped at the second generation of these video games.
Because this is just it's just so it's beyond retro. It's just what?
Well, then give. I mean,
It's the missing link in the evolution of
between
video
the ape
games.
and man. Yeah, but you can try with. You can.
But
try
definitely some older game. I mean, even Tekken would be nice.
Tekken.
And that is retro.
I actually played Tekken 2 and Tekken 3.
I think I only played Tekken 3.
Tekken 3 is pretty good. It's very good. How
Yeah.
old are you, by the way?
27.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tekken 3 was very good.
for sure. I played that. Yeah.
What's your favorite character?
I think this dude.
Oh, same. I got the
Think this
same.
dude.
What's his name again?
I don't know.
I knew it, but I forgot.
But this is just a sunny boy type. So
Yeah, but I also like.
it's always the best choice because it's the overall most popular most of the time.
Yeah.
The sunny boys.
It is Korean. I realized afterwards.
Oh,
That's why
really?
he does.
But he
taekwondo.
looks European
Yeah, whitewashed.
for sure. Yeah. Tekken was, well, it's even really high rated.
Yeah, of course. It's one of the best fighting game ever.
Well, if we would play it right now, it would
But the new ones, I guess they're in line with modern standards.
Sure, for real.
But yeah, I think I'd have fun.
Yeah. Because for this one, it's probably very easy to get an emulator.
Yeah.
You told me about that you found the Game Boy emulator, because that I didn't even know it existed. Game Boy emulators for PC.
Game Boy Advanced. Maybe they are so old that you cannot even find them on Google anymore. But
Because I think, I might not even had tried to find PSP emulators on the PC. But yeah, the only time I even was concerned with those things was when I looked for the emulator for my PSP. Yeah, it was really troublesome. I found, but still, was quite the work. All right, I think let's just put this on a note. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't sync the audio. Well, not sync, but still made something like that.
which means
Well, sometimes when you need to, for whatever reason, just use the backup audio, you might as well want to have it synced.
okay.
So, and the way the program recognizes the sync is that it just sees the spikes and can actually align them. So if
I see.
it has no spikes, right? It has trouble,
yeah.
and then you need to just listen and look at the motions and then find the audio. It's just the backup, essentially. That's why you have those.
So you did it now and it doesn't change. I mean, it wasn't too late.
No, I think no.
Okay.
Because it just it sees the spikes and let's
You
say
have to have it at least in one point.
yeah, because
Okay.
it just will align. It should at least. But most of the time people do it in the front simply because afterwards they might cancel something or change something.
Okay.
Whatever. All right. So that's it, folks. 3 hours.
Wow.
3 hours. So we change. I think we stop the recording and then the audio. All right.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Goodbye. Tuoms.
Ciao.
Marco's
Tuom.
girlfriend.
Who went to bed, by the way?
Yeah.
Ciao.
Stop it.